Okay, just checking the feed, everyone. Good morning, good evening, sorry, good evening. How's everyone doing? Let's see. Okay, just checking the feed, everyone. Wonderful. All right. Great to see everyone out there. Thanks for joining us this evening. Okay, aloha kako. Welcome and good evening. My name is James Eustace, and I'm the president of the Waimea Community Association. Thank you to those joining us online tonight for our virtual Gubernatorial Candidate Forum. This evening, we'll be hearing from 8 candidates seeking your support in our state primary election on August 13th. I encourage you to follow, like, and subscribe to the Waimea Community Association on our social accounts. You may also find relevant information and resources up on our website at waimeatown.org. We strive to keep our accounts active and up to date. This evening, we are streaming over to our YouTube channel, and we'll be making this available for later viewing as well. And at this point, I'd like to recognize the WCA board members, our Vice President, Mary Beth Lachek, our Treasurer, Jeremy Madrid, our Secretary, Nancy Carr-Smith, and our Directors, Patty Cook, Michael Donnelly, David Greenwell, Lonnie Olson-Chong, and Riley Smith. The Waimea Community Association Board is grateful for the support shown by the community to hold these forums. And the Waimea Community Association is a nonprofit organization that strives to promote open participation by all of the Waimea community, develop leadership, and smart growth of the region. If you'd like to support the work that we have done and help continue our effort in connecting with our community, you're more than welcome to donate and join as a member. Please visit our website, waimeatown.org, or send us an email at waimeacommunityassociation@gmail.com for more information. Your contributions and membership allow us to reach out and connect with the community in this setting and support the work that WCA has done over the past 60 years. Mahalo nui. And as mentioned, tonight we'll be hearing from 8 gubernatorial candidates. We are grateful this evening to be joined by Vicky Cayetano, Gary Cordery, Keline Kahau, Congressman Kai Kahele, Dr. Richard Kim, Lynn Mariano, Paul Morgan, and Heidi Tsuneyoshi. Candidates for our forum this evening met 2 criteria. First, that they have filed their nomination papers by the filing deadline. And second, that candidates had publicly disclosed a positive campaign account balance through the Campaign Spending Commission. Candidates were invited based upon the date that they submitted their nomination papers and were able to select from available time slots for this evening on a first come, first served basis. The candidates will be calling in throughout the evening, joining us to give a 2-minute self-introduction. And after their self-introduction, candidates will be then asked a series of questions during a 16-minute period. These questions have been submitted ahead of time by community members. I do apologize if your specific question was not asked or an interest of yours was not addressed this evening, but we have done our best to capture a wide range of topics. We hope that the questions asked the candidates during the forum this evening better informs your decisions during the election process. And if you do have an inquiry of the candidates and that we were unable to get to, we encourage that you reach out to them, ask their campaigns or them directly. Thank you as well for taking the time to submit your questions to the Waimea Community Association and helping to make the Q&A portion community driven. And following the Q&A portion, candidates will be given a 1 minute to make any closing remarks. Candidates will be timed and a bell will sound when their time expires. Candidates have been encouraged to keep their answers concise and direct for the benefit of them answering more of the community generated questions. All candidates will have the opportunity to answer the same questions, time permitting, and each candidate will be on the video conferencing call for about 20 minutes, after which they will be dismissed. And tonight, I will be joined by a number of my WCA board members, Nancy Carr-Smith, Lonnie Olson-Chong, and Jeremy Madrid, as they assist in presenting the questions to the candidates. And this evening, we're also grateful to have Donna Oba, the president of the Hawaii State League of Women Voters and treasurer of the Honolulu League of Women Voters, to provide important information about the voting process in 2022. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that works to protect and expand voting rights ensuring that everyone is represented in our democracy. And through advocacy, education, and even litigation, the League of Women Voters actively empowers and engages voters across our country. Thank you, Donna, and to the League for your support in connecting with and assisting our voters in our communities. So to start things up, absolutely. So to start things off, I'd like to welcome in Donna Oba to share with us some key items about our election process and information about a great resource to help you learn more about the candidates. So welcome, Donna. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll briefly cover registering to vote, and there's a slide to go with it. Ways to vote in Hawaii, important dates, something new in 2022, and where you can get election information. The next slide. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to let you know, if you move or you changed your name or you didn't get a yellow postcard, our little notification from, or it's been 2 election cycles since you've last voted, you may need to re-register to vote. So it's easy to re-register or register for the first time. So applications are available online. If you have a Hawaii ID, you can just do it online. If you want to do it by paper, you can get a download and print an application or pick one up at the elections office or DMV. And then you can mail it or bring it into the office, or you can come visit us at WikiWiki voter registrations on August 2nd and 3rd. We're going to be at 3 sites. And then if you want to vote in person, you can actually register on election day. Just walk in, register to vote, and then go ahead and vote. Next slide, please. So there are different ways to vote. Hawaii is pretty modern in its elections. We can vote in person on election day, but we can also vote for the 10 days preceding election day. That's called early voting. And those are open every day except Sundays. And then and they have more limited hours, 8:30 to 4. What's good about them is that there is accessible voting there, but keep in mind that there's only 2 locations and the lines may be long on election day, so give yourself enough time. The other way to vote is by mail. We're really lucky in Hawaii to have done that. And again, it's pretty easy to do. Every registered voter in Hawaii will get a ballot in the mail. But keep in mind that in order for it to be counted, it must be received by 7 p.m. on election day. So if you mail the ballot, your completed ballot, mail early, or there are 9 drop boxes on the Big Island, or you can also take it to one of those 2 voting locations. Next slide, please. So there's some tips about voting by mail. I want to make sure that you look at both sides of the ballot. You use a blue or black pen. Make sure you put your ballot in the secrecy envelope, return both in the return envelope, sign the outside, and again, mail it in time for it to get there by election day. Next slide, please. And there's some important dates that we want to keep in mind. The primary election's on August 13th, and to get a paper or a mail ballot, you need to register by August 3rd, and that's for the primary. And then rather than confuse you with more dates, let's just go to the next slide, because these are also more important dates for the primary. You should get your mail ballot by July 26th, plus or minus a day. And again, to vote early at 2 voting service centers, you can vote from August 1st through the 13th. The 13th is election day. And there will also be the 9 drop boxes available from the 1st and the 13th. And then if you're out of town and you won't be here for the elections, you can request an absentee ballot to be sent to you wherever you might be. But again, the deadline for that is August 6th, and keep in mind about mail. Now, what's new for 2022? Next slide, please. We can now track our ballots. They've set up a system where you can sign up to receive a text, an email, or a voice alert and track your ballots. There's a website, hawaii.ballottrax.net. So that's a new fun thing, and I'm looking forward to that. Next slide, please. And so if you want more information about candidates, I mean, there are nearly 400 candidates running it in 165 races in Hawaii. This is a really large number of candidates there. So Hawaii County voters will see 11 races on their primary ballot. To see your ballot, the league has an online voter guide called Vote 411. There are links for voter registration, announcements of candidate forums like tonight, and you can see who will be on your ballot and get some more information from them, about them. All right, finally, thank you very much. Last slide. And that's the league emails, our website. So feel free to contact us if you have any questions, and we'll see you at the ballot box. Aloha.
Mahalo, Donna. Thank you for taking the time to update our viewers and really help with this dialogue and discussion and really guide us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so at this time, I would really like to welcome our first candidate of the evening, Mrs. Cayetano, Mrs. Vicky Cayetano. Welcome, Vicky. Thank you so much for joining us. You may begin your 2-minute self-introduction.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Mr. Eustace, and all of you for being on this meeting. It's an honor for me to be with you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. As you know, I am not a lifetime politician, but I am an entrepreneur, business person, mother, and grandmother. I got into this race because I think, like most people in our state, we recognize that Hawaii is at its most critical juncture. And 5 years in a row now, our population has declined. The saddest part is that it's the young people, it's the working people who are leaving us. And I ask you this evening, if our future, the young people, are leaving the state of Hawaii, what kind of future do you think our state can hope to have? That's why I'm in the race to be governor. I want to bring common sense, practical solutions to the issues that we've talked about, some for decades, that have only been exacerbated with COVID. I want to bring action plans to getting these issues resolved, have better coordination and working relationship with the counties so we can work together, and so that we can balance the powers of who government serves. And that is that we need to serve the people, not just the special interests and lobbying groups. That's why I'm in this race, and I thank you for your time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mrs. Cayetano. Thank you, Vicky. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to one of our board members here, Nancy Carr-Smith, who's going to start us off with the Q&A session here. Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome, James. Aloha, Mrs. Cayetano.
Please call me Vicky.
Vicky. Okay, thank you. Well, exactly what you said is the first topic I wanted to ask you about, the cost of living here. What strategies will you utilize to address the skyrocketing cost of living here that's severely impacting many island residents and forcing them to move away? Please be specific about a couple of ideas you have.
Well, as you know, there's a number of issues that are causing this problem. I think we have to have both a short-term and a long-term plan. Long-term meaning in the next couple of years to tackle with urgency. So long-term, what I would want to do is look at the work with the counties to look at the permitting and planning process and see how we can eliminate where there's any duplicity of efforts, where we can eliminate that. I'd look at land use and State Historic Preservation Department, see how we can not minimize, but eliminate some of the unnecessary permitting requirements. We have to look at infrastructure as well and work with the private sector on how we address that. In the immediate situation, I would work with the legislature to see if we could come up with a moratorium on any rent increases for the next 2 years, just to stem this immediately so that people, without rent control, some of these renters are looking at 25-30% increases. They can't afford that. So I would want to see if we can't put in place a moratorium for the next 2 or 3 years on any rent increase to stem this immediately, and then look to work on minimizing some of the permitting and planning timelines. I also am running to bring transparency, accountability, and urgency. These 3 things must be in the system that we have in government in order for us to deliver results. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. Let's move on to agriculture and food security. It can be an important driver to help diversify our economy and improve self-reliance in the state. We keep being told that Hawaii Island has tremendous potential with diversified ag, but it seems to be slow going. And many farmers here are extremely frustrated that ag gets a lot of talk, but not a lot of serious support. If elected governor, what's your vision for agriculture? If you can be specific, please.
Again, multiple issues that hamper our ability to address and fix these problems. We need to connect all these dots in order to do it. First and foremost, we have to look at the funding for ag. We can talk about it, but if we don't put our money where our mouth is, we can't possibly support it as we say we are. So we cannot just pay lip service to agriculture. The second thing I look at is this hybrid model between DLNR and Department of Ag, and why is it, for example, that the farmers and their leases fall under the DLNR? To me, there's a direct conflict of interest there. I don't know why DLNR would be supportive of farmers. So I think that's something I'd work at. And again, DLNR and the ag is all under the governor's executive area. So I'd work on that to see how we can restructure how the oversight of the agriculture industry is to better support it. And then I'd work with the University of Hawaii, CTAR, to see how we can strengthen that partnership to better serve the farmers. We also need to look at being able to give longer term leases to farmers so that they can invest in their business. You cannot give someone a lease that's 5 years or less and expect them to be able to invest in that. Thank you.
Good answer. Thank you. Switching gears to astronomy. What's your position on astronomy? And specifically, but not solely, the 30-meter telescope. What's your ideas and path to move forward?
It's interesting that just in your questions, you've covered the top 3 things that I noted: housing, affordable housing, agriculture, and astronomy. So thank you. Astronomy, I support the 30-meter telescope. I think it is very important now that the 11-member independent panel is made up of people who are qualified and that they are not political appointees. I think that we need to understand how important astronomy is to the state of Hawaii and to the rest of the world, to the young people that we want to create more jobs for outside of just the service industry. So I'd fully support it. And my biggest concern right now is being able to ensure that the panel that has governance over it is made up of people who are qualified to be on that panel and who will support astronomy. Thank you.
Very good. Moving to education. Early childhood experiences have a direct impact on kindergarten readiness and future success in school. In your role as governor, what would you do to help the Department of Education improve student outcomes?
So I believe in universal preschool. We need to do that across the state. I realize it is a huge undertaking, and I'm a believer that we start somewhere. So I would look at communities on every island and start with a program for these designated communities, the ones that need them most, to start with that, learn from their, shall we say, our learning challenges, so that we can have then a master plan to roll out throughout the rest of the state. But I'm a great believer in universal preschool. With respect to other aspects of education, once again, I feel that so often, one of the challenges to successful outcomes is when things are politicized. So my role as governor is to ensure that the Board of Education appointees are once again people who understand what teachers and principals go through, who will support the superintendent, and outlining a clear vision of what needs to get done, putting in place systems where we can be accountable to each other. And from there, frankly, not to micromanage them, but to get out of their way and to ensure that the politics, whether with the legislature or at the board level, don't interfere with the outcome to support our teachers. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. That sort of moves right into your administrative goals. There'd be numerous appointments that you would be looking at making if you were elected. Wondered how you would go about selecting key cabinet and staff members.
So one of the most important things the governor does is the ability to put a strong team surrounding her. Because like everything, it's the team that makes things happen, never just one player or one manager. So that to me is the most important thing. The second thing I would do is neighbor islands. As I've campaigned and traveled to all the different communities on each island, there's no question that the neighbor islands feel that the state government is Oahu-centric. And there's no reason why we shouldn't consider, and I would have at the cabinet level, a director from each of the islands, Hawaii Island, Maui, which of course includes Molokai and Lanai, and Kauai, so that these cabinet directors from each of these islands have the accessibility and the ability to work with the directors of the Department of Transportation, DLNR. You know, it's that kind of access, and to work with the governor to elevate their representation for these islands at the cabinet level. That's what we need to do, not just keep talking about it and making promises, but come with these kinds of plans. The second thing I would do is look at the boards and commissions and work with the counties to see, once again, how can we work better together and not necessarily have the same amount of boards and commissions. We need to create a much more effective and efficient government, state and county, for the people of Hawaii. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to climate change. Climate change puts Hawaii at risk in many ways, from disastrous sea level rise to drought, wildfires, coral bleaching, more intense storms, etc. What do you think about the planning and progress by our state and counties, and what would you do to prioritize for your administration?
So once again, a very complicated issue with many considerations: affordability, climate change, addressing it instead of paying lip service. And I think at the heart of everything, we must once again really make sure that our solutions are not coming from, how shall I say it, to politicize it, but to really address it. And I also believe strongly that the stakeholders, the people who are at the table, need to be those who understand the subject, and to have the legislature involved in the process. I don't think there's one simple answer, but I think the key is to start putting in place not only an action plan, but just as importantly in my mind is a timeline and accountability so that we can see if we are making progress. Too many times we make plans, such as going back to the ag situation where this administration imposed a 2030 food sustainability goal. But where's the plan to achieve that? So we have to stop making empty statements and come up with more specificity, and then make sure we don't politicize it, and create a timeline and accountability so that we can see that we are on schedule or not. And more importantly, to me, is also communication to the residents, to the people of Hawaii. I feel like there's just not enough of that, and people are not understanding of what we are doing or not doing. Either way, we need to have better communication.
Thank you. Another big topic is energy. How will you help Hawaii become energy self-reliant and reduce our dependency on fossil fuel? And in addition, do you support geothermal as a renewable form of energy generation?
So I would work with the subject matter experts in each of these fields, along with the counties and the legislative branch, to address this. I hear arguments for and against. I think geothermal has a lot of potential, but I have heard some people who are very opposed to it. So I really couldn't today give you an answer directly on that, but I would make a commitment that we need to hear all angles, not politicize the process, be transparent to the people, and engage the community. You know, I understand there will be people coming out who oppose ideas or plans of, but we need to have that conversation. We mustn't be afraid of that. And that way, when we make the decisions we make, at least the people feel that they've participated and that their voices have been heard. I think that's what people want, and they deserve that.
Thank you. What are your thoughts about emergency response in the state? We're susceptible to a wide array of emergencies, which can also affect the supply chain. What do you think about improvements that can be made in terms of emergency preparedness and disaster resilience?
I don't think that the state is that well prepared, very candidly. And if it is, I don't think it's been communicated to residents clearly. So I think I know that is one of the first things I would do. And we have to look at all-encompassing security from the schools with what's happened. We need to revisit all of our security protocols. I understand there are plans in place, but we need to revisit them and make sure that it's apropos for today. Look at harbor security. We are so reliant on everything coming in. How secure are our harbors, I ask? So that's something I would look at. Everything, but like you mentioned, I am absolutely not 100% certain that that's been addressed. And I would, as governor, make that a top priority to look at the security issues throughout our state and through every industry, key industry.
Thank you. The last question for you. Please share one specific thing, such as a project or a service that you've helped start or worked on, that you've dedicated a lot of time to, and that you think demonstrates or clarifies why residents should vote for you to be our governor.
So there are multiple things that I've been involved in. So I'll just mention a few, but go into one that really, to me, is very important. So whether it had to do with the environment and our successful ban to be the first state in the country to ban shark finning. And that's important because sharks are the apex predators and the imbalance that it would have created without them in our ecosystem. So that was successful. Certainly being able to preserve Washington Place for future generations, the home of our queen, for them to enjoy. But the third thing I'd really point out is the long-term care bill in 1 year that I led and got passed. And this was done in 2002. Unfortunately, the new governor did veto the bill. But I have to say, if you look back 20 years ago, if we had done that, we'd be in a far better position of taking care of our kupuna today. But it successfully do that. I would be remiss, Mr. Eustace, if I just didn't say something that I think is really important to Hawaii
Please.
Island.
Yeah. Please,
That is
so yeah, could you take one, Vicky, just, I'll give you a minute here so we can wrap things up. Yeah, please go right ahead.
healthcare. Without our health, we have nothing. We need to address the shortage of our healthcare physician, nurses, and healthcare personnel. And Hawaii Island does need another hospital, without a doubt. That is something that we absolutely must work on if I have the privilege of being your governor. Thank you. Thank you all so much.
And you've still have a little more time, Vicky, if you'd like to say any last remarks about your campaign or anything else. Okay, we have a couple of seconds here left.
Couples that well, no, just again to say that, they say that how you campaign is very much the way you will govern. And I think that as I work and go out to people, I hope people will see that that is how I would be as a governor. You need to be accessible. That's been my 34 years life career, is listening to people and from them taking their ideas and my ideas and making things happen instead of just keep talking about it. So I thank you for this opportunity so much.
Absolutely. Great to have you. Thank you, Vicky. We
Thank you,
appreciate
Vicky.
all this evening. Thank you. Aloha. All right. Next up, we're going to roll right along here. So we'd like to welcome in our next candidate, Mr. Paul Morgan. Welcome, Paul. You may begin your 2-minute self-introduction. Thank you.
Aloha. Thanks for having me, Waimea Community Association. My name is Paul Morgan. I was born and raised in Mississippi in 1975 to a single mother who told me that I could be whatever I wanted to be. I just had to be willing to work hard for it. So I took all of that to heart and to mind. And, I had an opportunity in Mississippi, and it was through education. I am fortunate that I had some loving teachers who shared what education is the key, and had a really great high school coach. And all of that turned into an opportunity to attend Vanderbilt University on a full scholarship. While at Vanderbilt, I majored in human and organizational development. And eventually I started working in child protective services, juvenile probation, adult probation. I've even worked in a prison. And eventually I opened a consulting company, an insurance agency, and I'm currently full-time a business development consultant. While in this role, I've also been a high school football coach since I've been in Hawaii as well, at Kamehameha Schools and Kealakehe on the Kona side. So with all of those different things being said, the opportunity to help small minority veteran woman-owned businesses as a stint as a government contractor, that's what I did. And that's what we're going to transfer all of that knowledge into being the next governor of Hawaii. Why am I running? I'm running because I care. I care about the issues. I care that I have 4 children who I'm raising between the ages, or helping to raise between the ages of 8 months and 16 years old. And the other kids who are in schools who are being coached, that we know they have a tremendous need and a desire to thrive in this state, along with their parents who are working sometimes 2 and 3 jobs, with the business owners who are also doing whatever it takes to make ends meet. So being the next governor and being able to collaborate with nonprofits such as yourself and other 501c3s to leverage some federal state programs in order to help with the issues from affordable housing to healthcare, to education, to technology. My name is Paul Morgan, and I'm running to be your next governor of Hawaii. Mahalo.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Appreciate that. So I'm going to pass it over to our board member, Nancy, to kind of dive into our Q&A portion. Take it away, Nancy.
Aloha, Mr. Morgan. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So do you live on the Big Island? Is that?
I do. I live on Kona, and you guys are more than welcome to come out on Wednesdays to help wave signs between 4 and 6 behind the Mormon church.
Very good. Thank you. Let's dive right into some questions and hot topics here and get an idea of what your thoughts are. The cost of living, what strategies will you utilize to address the skyrocketing cost of living on the island or in the state? And specifically, what ideas do you have to address the rising?
In particular, bringing that background back to the forefront of having worked with federal and state agencies to help entrepreneurs start their businesses. The opportunities that have not been tapped into yet is leveraging nonprofits, also from nonprofits to churches, to actually get into the developer game, to develop public lands, to create sustainable housing with new technology that's available. There's an HRIS statute number 46 that allows for cutting the red tape, if you will allow that, cutting the red tape and speeding up these development projects for the sake of experimental and demonstration housing. So being able to go in knowing that we're in a housing crisis and utilize the powers of the governor to partner with nonprofits, churches, and other associations that have that status to expedite developing across the state.
Okay, thank you. What about agriculture and food security? Agriculture can be an important driver to help diversify our economy and improve self-reliance in the state. We keep being told that Hawaii Island has tremendous potential with diversified ag, but it's slow going, and many farmers here are extremely frustrated that ag gets a lot of talk, but not a lot of serious support. As governor, what would your vision be for agriculture?
So that goes along with, with the assistance of UH-ELO, when they created that sustainability conference, they identified the top issues across the state: affordable housing, healthcare, technology, and local issues. And farming and sustainability is on that list as well. So coming from a farm state, Mississippi, and seeing some of the best practices and just living across the South, and knowing that Hawaii Island in particular has some of the most fertile land in the world, that goes along with a part of our platform, which is Hawaii First. And under the economic recovery area, we have Hawaii Made and Hawaii Grown, which is to take those best practices to those or bring those farmers together who have those best practices so that they can be scaled across the state. And with that being said, shoring up technical assistance programs. Once the farmers and the business owners opt into this program under my administration, we're going to help export those products, goods, and services across the world. And for us, the path for least resistance to the mainland and some of the other places is because those people who were forced to leave from Hawaii because of the cost of living. So utilizing them in order to pass along the business to them in those states where land is cheaper under the brand Hawaii Made, Hawaii Grown. That's one of the most efficient ways that we'll do it while maintaining pilot projects and programs for sustainability and best practices in the state of Hawaii to cure that problem.
Thank you for that answer. How about the economy? In light of Hawaii's extreme reliance on tourism and the economic implosion caused by COVID-19, how would you move Hawaii toward a more diversified economy? Please give a couple of examples.
Okay, well, had the mask mandates not been reversed, that would have been the first thing that in the first 100 days that I will do. Reversing those mandates, rehiring those people that lost their jobs, and considering all treatment options for COVID-19, including natural immunity, because the testing services, those are opportunities for, again, Hawaii Made, Hawaii Grown businesses, opportunities that with the government's assistance, that we can empower our own small businesses to be players on the world stage. So taking, as I mentioned, the opportunity for small businesses to opt in to Hawaii Made, Hawaii Grown, to scale them, to get them ready to grow with the support of monies coming in from those tourists who are still coming to Hawaii, a $25 economic recovery. Can't call it a tax yet, but they pay into this where those funds are used to support Hawaii Made, Hawaii Grown businesses, along with low interest loans from federal partners like the USDA.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thoughtful response. I'm curious about what you might think about invasive species in our state. We've had severe impact from eliminated native ecosystems. This has cost taxpayers and individuals millions of dollars, and in some cases, placed the lives of human, farm animals, native flora and fauna at risk. Quick emergency response is needed to eradicate diseases like dengue, rat lungworm, rapidohea death, and pests like little fire ants, the two-line spittlebug, and the coffee borer beetles. Feral goats, deer, and sheep are also invasive and growing populations. What solutions do you support?
Well, when I first moved to Hawaii back in 2013, I was a member of the Hawaii Coffee Association, and CBB was the coffee CBB is and still is one of the things that is being affecting the farmers. So just considering the best practices through the CTAR, College of Hawaii Tropical Agriculture, forgive me for not knowing the name of the acronym, but just considering best practices they've experienced, and because that's a USDA federally funded program, we want to consider those best options that work in the best interest of those farmers. And then being able to educate the other farmers on these best practices in a way. I believe Andrea Kawabata is still running that office. She's a great resource to address these issues. And along with some of the rat lung type of things that are going on as well. So just utilizing the resources that we have within the states, from the scientists to evidence-based programs that actually work. And then ultimately it comes down to education, educating from the governor's office on that daily press conference with the cabinet and the board of directors, all the way to the schools, so that kids know what's going on, and then even into the association, so people know what's affecting our communities. So really driving home the education piece on a consistent level.
Thank you. Speaking of education, regarding the Department of Education, how would you support early childhood readiness through the Department of Education? What are your ideas on that?
Well, one of those is starting with the children who aren't able to attend first grade. So having some conversations with the Head Start program that they would like to expand the program, and then actually having an 18-year-old mother she'll soon be a mother, approach me in the mall on Oahu to say, what are you going to do for young mothers to help with healthcare, education cost, because that's one of the largest costs associated with raising a child in Hawaii. And from that perspective, I said, well, I just had this conversation with the Head Start program, and they want to expand the program. So it's just simply partnering with those nonprofits to accept this type of program in those different areas, different communities, different associations, where this program can help benefit working families. So just from the Head Start program, that's one of those different areas. And in schools, again, nights and weekends, working with nonprofits who have that 501c3 status, because this is in alignment with three of our values, which is not to increase the overhead of the state, not to cause people to think they're going to lose their jobs, and what's in the best interest of the citizens of the state of Hawaii. So working with those nonprofits in schools, nights and weekends, to address issues from reef restoration to tutoring to after school programs, to give those families an opportunity to work that second shift or third shift to get the revenue while the kids are in a safe place. But they're also being tutored in their needed areas, whether it's math or reading, arithmetic, or just performing a show for the kupunas to have a day trip to come to the performing arts or the stadium at the school. So just really working in a collaborative effort with nonprofits and schools to address a lot of these issues until we can get into the curriculum of what's going to be in the best interest. I believe education should support three things in particular. Independent living skills for children, eventually once they've graduated, 1, 2, career development, and 3, entrepreneurship development. So having them actually prepared to, 1, support their families, to 3, know how they're going to make a living. And eventually, if they choose to start a business, the development that they have from the early ages is truly important.
Thank you.
Yes.
Those ideas must make you a good football coach, I would imagine. This is good ideas. Switching to astronomy. What's your position on astronomy and on the 30-meter telescope, if you could share, please? Well,
taking those two issues separately, my position on astronomy is, it's a tremendous science. As far as TMT, I've actually said it on a television show that I oppose it. And the reason why I oppose it is because of the 1,400 testimonies that were submitted. So without having considered and read those testimonies, I want to know more about why the citizens are actually opposing this, so that we can come to a resolution to get this figured out.
Okay, thank you. How about energy? How will you help Hawaii become energy self-reliant and reduce our dependence on fossil fuel?
Well, at one time I was certified as an economic development research economic developer, and also certified in energy consulting services. So just seeing the dependency on on foreign energy, starting within our own houses, from the receptacles to capacitors on utility boxes to even aerators on the sinks that lower the usage of water from 3 gallons to 0.75 gallons per minute. Just the small changes that we can place in those homes. As far as the reliance on foreign fuel, that's going to take some assistance in coordination with the federal government, namely one with the Jones Act, to consider other options to increase the competitiveness of fuel to Hawaii. I don't believe we're at that stage, and talking with some other people who know better than I do, but we can 100% totally rely on just solar or wind, but relying on technology for smart homes where everyone can have their own solar panels, have their own chargers for their own cars. Eventually it'll get to that point for a lot of it, but we're still going to be relying on fuel. So just having a plan where it works in the best interest of, I think the workers were at the Capitol a day or so ago, we're saying 100% solar for everybody. I agree with that. I agree everyone should have solar in their homes where they own it, and they're just utilizing the connection charge to the grid. I agree with that 100%. But I don't see right now where we will be able to be 100% relying on the solar or wind and not utilizing fossil fuels.
Thank you. What about climate change? What are your ideas, and what would, as governor, what would your priorities be in terms of climate change effects to the state?
Well, it's recycling from my perspective. It's taking the plastic, the bottles, and all these other different things, and finding new ways. I was just looking online the other day, and there's a sustainable line of clothing that's actually made with recycled plastic. So just considering those best practices and what's in the best interest of Hawaii, that would go with Hawaii made, Hawaii grown, so we can benefit the economy for the state of Hawaii. And just continuing to be or being better stewards of the land.
Okay, good, thank you. What about infrastructure? Capital improvement projects using low interest bond funding are extremely important to fund major projects such as hospitals, schools, roads, and bridges. What would your priorities be in terms of CIP priorities?
Well, so much of the bonds, it puts us in a debt position. I see more of attracting the investment to Hawaii. One, we're talking about healthcare, and that's simply repealing the con laws, certificate of need laws, so we can attract investment to the state of Hawaii to build new hospitals, and working with healthcare centers such as West Hawaii. I'm a board member of West Hawaii Community Health Center. So just having entities like that who are able to secure as a 501c3 funding, and with the mergers that's about to happen, it'll help take the burden of medical services from the hospitals to anything that's not urgent, or they can go to the urgent care or to the healthcare facilities on a regular basis, so that we have more of a balance in medical care in the state of Hawaii. But definitely attracting that investments to Hawaii to support entrepreneurs in Hawaii, Hawaii made, Hawaii grown, to actually take that expertise, technical assistance, in order to help ourselves from the inside to be sustainable.
Yeah, good, thank you. The last question that I have for you is, please share one specific thing, project or service that you've been a part of that you dedicated a lot of time to, that you think demonstrates or clarifies to residents why they should vote for you as our next governor.
Well, before I came to Hawaii, I like to tell people, or I tell people, I actually did my homework. I took the time to know what the culture was about, or better. And as I moved to Hawaii, I made 2 trips before. I actually moved in 2013. And when I moved here, I was asking for permission to be here, And in the effect of being humble, of just, hey, I'm here for all the right reasons. I've had this feeling that I would be here since I was a child. And that, just that mindset, it attracted me to having a television show where I was here on public access, promoting small businesses. I couldn't commercialize them, but I could share their stories. and just meeting the ladies at that public access TV station. And they said, hey, you should coach football at our high school. So that turned into meeting coaches out at Kamehameha schools. And the brother said, brother, you don't need permission. So I'm here for the right reasons of helping us to help ourselves and to bring it all to the table. Mahalo. My name is Paul Morgan, and I'm running for governor of Hawaii. I apologize for that.
Nope. All right,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Morgan,
Paul.
I'll give you one more minute to make any closing remarks you'd like to say to our viewers. Please go right ahead.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Waimea Community Association, for this tremendous opportunity to be able to speak to your association members and to make this opportunity on the YouTube as well. I just want to ask for everyone's support in this primary election coming up, August the 13th. It's on a Saturday, but it's August 13th, to vote for Paul Morgan for governor of Hawaii. I am the only guy who can bring this thing together from a team perspective and considering our best interests. The three areas that the values for this campaign is not increasing overhead of the state, not causing people to think they're going to lose their jobs, and doing what's truly in the best interest of the citizens of Hawaii. I look forward to working with each and every one of you in this next administration. Mahalo.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. We appreciate you joining us here this evening, and we'll say goodbye. Aloha, all the best to you.
Aloha. Mahalo.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, and like I said, we're just going to move right along here, and I think we have Dr. Kim in the room with us now. Dr. Kim, are you there? There we go. All syncing up now. I'll make sure you're unmuted there, sir. Welcome, Dr. Kim. Absolutely.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello.
Please go right ahead and I'll give you your 2-minute self-introduction.
Sure. Thanks for the invitation. My name is Richard Kim, dentist, a Democratic candidate for governor. I believe governor should have a vision, big vision, and a dream, big dream. Not only thinking of a current generation and issues, but also for the future generations and issues. And we need to see first the true fundamental issues of Hawaii, rather than and more than money-related policy issues. What is the most important thing in our daily life? Health, security, money, finance, economy. So let me just further introduce more about me. About 42 years ago, my family moved to Hawaii from Seoul, Korea, right after I finished high school there. So I had some difficulties, especially because of the language barrier. And I didn't speak a word of English when I came here. Sadly, my mom died before we moved to Hawaii, and my dad died right after he came to Hawaii, and he is buried in Mililani. So in terms of emotional health, I am a lifetime griever and survivor. So first, we need to, just going back to the health, security, and money economy issue. First, we need to stand collectively, alone, independently. Especially, we need to sustain in health and economy. And first, physical health and emotional health needs to be addressed. One example is that our COVID management, the physical health. The pandemic management was a lot of failure. Simply, we've not been prepared at all, and we are currently having the Omicron surge. The officials abandoned us since Delta invasion. And since I have only 30 seconds, I just want to skip some of the stuff. And the officials, especially Josh Green, he intentionally allowed this Delta variant to attack us. And more sadly, media have been in cahoots. Sorry, I have to just finish it if you don't mind. And that's why many people still don't know about this mayhem. And I'm the only candidate who has a 2-track COVID management plan. And Hawaii reform is all about us. And professionals first. And among the professionals, media first. I have a specific plan for media reform. Then we'll build ourselves emotionally. And then we have to diversify our economies to a self-sustainable level. We build our own Hawaii nation within a nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. We're going to dive right into some of the tough questions. So Nancy, I'm going to pass it right over to you.
Sure. Since you're speaking of economy, Dr. Kim, could you give us a couple of specific examples of what you would do to diversify our economy?
Sure. We got to think from the current condition, we need to reduce cost. And in other words, we got to do it cost effectively. And then we got to increase and make more revenue. That's what I wanted to do. And in that, we got to grow our own food. You delve into some agricultural issue. So we got to be self-sufficient in agriculture and then make our own goods by bringing manufacturing sectors and bring back ferries. In other words, boost transportation and boost economy. And if we cannot get rid of the Jones Act, or we want to find the alternative. And I have a specific plan, the Johnson Island, maybe we want to use as a ninth. If the Las Vegas Hawaiians don't like a ninth island, then we use it as a 10th island, so that all those Western Pacific shipment coming to the Johnson Island first without going to the West Coast. So we're going to save lots of money in that. So that's my plan for that. And also, you probably didn't hear about the Aloha Score and Aloha Department. Aloha Score, if we implement in addition to FICO Score in Hawaii, we can prevent out-of-state home buyers to buying from Hawaii property with money all along. So you got to have some Aloha high score, otherwise you cannot just buy our property. And another thing is that the renewable energy that you mentioned, you delved into also, that you talked about the geothermal thing, the energy use, and then solar energy or any kind of renewable energy we can use it. But I thought of when I was campaigning, one voter told me that what about nuclear energy? I think that's a good idea because of the fact that we already have a nuclear submarine in Pearl Harbor. So it's not going to be a big added issue. And if we can reduce the cost of that the power, then it's going to be great. So as I said, there's a big picture is that the cost, we want to reduce cost of living by doing all those things that more cost effectively and increase our revenues.
Okay. And what specifically would you do to increase our revenues?
So as I said, we gotta, to do that, we have to build our own economy. So especially right now, we are getting into stagflation. If you go back to 1918, Spanish flu, 9 years later, we got into a Great Depression. And we are going to have this economic issue. So what I'm thinking is that I want to be practical because ideally I do not agree, but the thing is we need some revenue growth. So I may want to bring a casino to the islands, but not in Waikiki. So that's one thing that I want to do. And as I said, I have to delve into, I have to think about a lot of positive side and negative side, and then pros and cons, and then options. So the important thing is that we have to, as a governor, I have to guide the corporation to the right direction. But in the Great Depression, the Keynesian theory, the government got involved too much, but still got through it. But in 1970s, the oil crisis, the Milton Friedman's more like a less government and a more more corporation activities had helped us. But my goal is that Hayek, the Austrian economist, he just gives some direction to the corporations and leave them alone, because Hawaii needs some direction at this point. So I want to give them how we want to just we need to boost our transportation. We want to bring H4 and H5 from Waihua to Waianae and Waihua to Laie. If you've been to the North Shore of Oahu, it's like the traffic is so bad. The economic, the opportunity cost is very, very expensive. So in terms of that, we have to boost our transportation. So that's what I wanted to do.
And what about on the neighbor islands?
Neighbor islands, as I said, if we connect all the islands through the ferries, then it's going to be one island, one land. So it's going to help us diversify better. The
Okay.
ferries must come back.
Okay. Could you please share 2 specific strategies that you will use to pursue, or rather that you will address the lack of affordable housing?
Yeah, that's a very, very kind of tricky and complicated issue. My opponents have a lot of good thinking, money eating, but it's a money eating plans, just empty promises. So as I said, we have to find a way to reduce the cost. Simply speaking, we have to improve our revenue. We have to increase our revenue. Without that, the affordable housing is not going to be easy. So as I said, that's the reason why I want to delve more into the increasing our revenues.
Okay.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on astronomy?
Astronomy. The TMT. Yeah, of course. I really value the scientific value and the economic value as well. The Native Hawaiians are complaining about that. Their sacred, worshiping, and then, but we can coexist. And I think that now I heard that those new management is having some good, having good conversation. So I have a good, I hope that it comes out nicely, and then we can work out together well.
Very good. Thank you.
Mhm.
What about education? How do you foresee yourself working with the Department of Education?
Yeah, education is number one, most of priority. As I said, right now we have a one size of pie. The teachers are not treated well. The kids are our future, and the teachers are our backbone of our society. So we got to do as much as we can to help them out. But one thing that I want to add in our curricula is that the emotional health curricula. We need to improve our emotional health. So it's a tough, I didn't kind of talk about because of lack of time, but from top to bottom, our emotional health is not good at all. Even top officials, they are not knowing, or they don't want to think about what the true priority is at this time of a pandemic emergency. And so I want to just look forward more like in the future. So I want to invest more on the emotional curricula. I want to implement emotional curricula at the primary and secondary schools.
Okay. What would your vision be for agriculture as governor?
Yeah, as I said, agriculture, if I could, I want to help the farmers as much as I could, because we need to be self-sustainable. The state, I want to just, coordinate with state and the local government. And we have to make sure that we make the agriculture to the growth scale level so that we can be self-sustainable. And I talked to one agriculture professor when I was doing campaigning, and he said that we can have enough water. If the Hawaii island has enough water, he says it's like we have to find a way to bring the waters to all different islands so that we can provide service to that. So that's one thing. As I said, I want to do as much as possible to help, make bigger and growth scale level of agriculture.
Okay, thank you. Regarding infrastructure, since you were talking about those things, what are your thoughts about CIP projects and what would priorities be?
We have too many people on the island, or we have so old, outdated infrastructure. We have to find a way to either one, reduce the number of the population there, or we got to improve our infrastructure. I think we're going to get about $2.8 billion infrastructure assistance from the federal government. And if I could, I want to spend that money as much as possible. As I said, it's about the boosting economy. We have to boost transportation. So as much as we got to make roads, we got to connect all the roads, and so that we don't lose our time collectively on the road. And that's what I hope to achieve.
Okay. All right. What about invasive species? We have several different invasive species throughout the state. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I studied biology when I was in college. The species usually come and go, but the thing is, because of the fact that we don't know when and how, when one species goes away and when new species come to us, then it may kind of unbalance, our ecosystem. So that's the reason why we try to maintain what it is at current level. So in this species, if we can control as what we have been doing, I want to support that. So as what we've been doing.
Okay.
Mhm.
What about emergency response? How do you think? the
Yeah,
state's
it's
been doing on that?
we need improvement in that too.
What would you do?
So, well, I have to kind of see, I've never been elected as your, so I don't know how bad they are. So I have to see whether I can find, better options to manage that. And if I get elected, and I'll do my best to, to prioritize it as our emergency response system.
Okay.
Okay.
What are your solutions for the cost of living increase that we're all experiencing? I think you might have touched on it, but can you be specific about what your thoughts are?
Yeah, as I said, there's a lower score is going to be good. It's a lower score is going to help us to reduce the cost of living.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, as I said, if to buy a property in Hawaii, you gotta have a low score in addition to FICO score. So so that we can, so you have to understand that the out-of-state home buyers just come in and then they jack up the home prices. So we have to make sure that we can maintain it at our current level, the local residents standard. So that in terms of that, if we can implement a low score, it's going to help. And then a low score will help a lot of stuff. It's going to reduce our crime. And if just check my site, and I have a lot of things. That's an innovative idea, and I hope that people agree with it, so that when I get elected, I want to implement it.
Very good. Where are we, James? 2 minutes. Okay. Our state parks throughout the islands seem to be generating good income right now. What would you do to assure the residents that the state parks of their islands, the income from those parks would remain on those islands?
I feel like it's unconstitutional. We charge the out of state people coming in. I know it's going to help, but we have to find a way to help the resident state parks grow their revenues in more logical way and constitutional way. So I have to see how we can improve in terms of our service to tourists and tourist industries.
Okay. Thank you very much. The last question that I have for you is, can you please share one specific thing, such as a project or a service that you've helped start or that you've dedicated yourself to, that the residents may see as a reason they should vote for you?
Yeah, I think it's like, as I said, not really doing anything in reality yet, but the things I already planned it out for the emotional health. that hopefully we can improve emotional health so that we can sustain ourselves, physically and emotionally, and so that we know what our true priority is. And hopefully, that's one more thing is our department, our score will help us go through that too. So that's the main thing that I want to implement.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kim. James?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Kim. So we'll give you one more minute to kind of wrap up anything else you'd like to say and any last
Sure.
remarks with the viewers.
Yeah.
So please go right ahead.
Sure. I am only the candidate who is willing to give in if I can find better candidates. But unfortunately, I haven't found anybody yet. I have a two-track COVID action plan, and I have a specific plan for the media reform. One is we want to implement a journalist labor union, and also I want to help implement a media mediation commission. And I have a specific plan for the balance in economic growth in a self-sustainable level. And I have innovative ideas of Aloha Score and Aloha Department. And Hawaii is very unique in the sense that we are multicultural and multi-ethnic society. And all Hawaii needs to unite in the name of Aloha, instead of dividing by racism and bigotry and manipulation, because the next generation is going to suffer as much. And in the end, Aloha spirit will rule our society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. We appreciate you joining us this evening. I wish you all the best.
You. Yeah,
Aloha.
Thanks for the invitation. Okay, bye.
All right. So we'll welcome our next guest here, and we'll just make sure he's queued up. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us here. All right, Mr. Cordery, do we have you online?
You do indeed.
Oh, welcome, sir. You have 2 minutes to give a self-introduction. Please go right ahead.
Okay. Are we live?
Yes, we are, sir.
Okay,
Go right ahead.
thank you, James. Thank you. Nancy, thank you for your leadership in this. Waimea Community Association, what an honor to share in a Zoom call with you and your guests on the line. I'm Gary Cordery. I live here in Kailua on Oahu. I've been in Hawaii since 1981, and I've been married to my beautiful bride, Kim, for 41 years. We have two beautiful daughters, Rachel and Erica. They're married to great young men, and we have seven magnificent grandchildren, and we're exceedingly blessed. I can tell you on the scale of what's important, we are exceedingly blessed, and I can't dream of a better life that we have because of those things. The reason for running for the governor's position here in Hawaii is probably evident to most people who are going to the voting booth this year. You on this panel and the citizens of the state and the viewers all have been struggling, and we've seen and experienced the difficulty, what it means to survive, and in the circumstances that we find ourselves in here as citizens. The difficulty financially, socially, in every aspect of our lives, we're experiencing government overreach. And so over this last couple of years, many of you may know the Aloha Freedom Coalition. We founded that to create a place of liberty for the people to thrive and live and really not be overwhelmed by mandates and executive orders. This translates really into the opportunity to bring righteous government to the State House. This is what we really need. We need people who think and with integrity, with honor, with truth, will speak the truth, make hard decisions, and create an opportunity for the citizens to thrive. This is what the people want. We want the Aloha lifestyle. We want the backyard barbecue. We want potlucks. We want the things that we had before, and we don't want to wonder, are we going to be able to live here next year? So this, with numerous other reasons to have a new governor, is why I'm running.
Thank you, Mr. Cordery. Appreciate that introduction there. I'm going to pass it over to our other board member, Lonnie Olson-Chong, who's joined us on here, and she's going to ask you a couple of questions for the next 16 minutes. Please take it away, Lonnie.
Aloha, Mr. Cordery. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. You can call me Gary.
Okay, Gary.
All right, thank you.
Let's start with the cost of living. What strategies will you utilize to address the skyrocketing cost of living here in the state? that
You
is
know,
severely impacting our islanders, that so many have to move away.
It is exactly true. And it's part of the reason why we're running. Our kids, our daughters left here Hawaii. They saw the writing on the wall. Our two kids, their families, our grandkids, they moved away because they could see that life here was unsustainable. The cost of living in Hawaii has been unsustainable. And basically, the core issues undermining the people is the cost of government, the size of government, the taxes applied, the regulations applied, not only by your basic state tax, but also the taxes that are generated within the agencies. People don't realize how many taxes and how difficult it is to do things like register your car or go and fill up your car with gasoline or go to the store. These issues, the implementation of secondary and second and third tier taxes, people are not necessarily aware of. So the cost of living here in Hawaii is really driven primarily by bad government policy. And these policies can be changed. And this is the reason for the run. We want to change policy so that people can live and breathe. We should not have to have 1, 2, 2.5 jobs where both parents are working and wondering who's raising their kids. This is not Pono. This is not Hawaii. And it doesn't have to be this way. This is a change in policy that is possible under the governor's direction.
Thank you. As governor, what is your vision for agriculture and food security?
Well, I'm sure that most of you remember that we used to have dairy. Remember Meadow Dairy? Remember that? So these industries are gone. They're no longer a part of Hawaii's society, not a part of our community. Dairy, poultry, produce, beef, all of these industries are no longer a part of our society. And this, again, as I mentioned earlier, is related to bad policy. DLNR and Department of Health must be instructed at the Deputy Department level to open up possibilities for these industries to come back into Hawaii. No longer should Hawaii be dependent on a Matson container for 95% of all that they have. It's not just bad policy. It's not just a short-term thinking, but what do your kids do when they go to school and they get a degree? What do they do? They go to the mainland. There's no jobs here. There's no industry here. Hawaii must open through these agencies. The government can open possibilities and level the playing field by dealing with land lease, taxes, fees, burdens, regulations. All of these things are constraining local industry from being profitable. And finally, with that piece, we need a nonprofit ferry for goods and services, a ferry that will actually allow a farmer or a rancher or a produce person to have their commodity move across the various islands and be able to deliver those goods. That means, though, that the Jones Act must be suspended. That act is constraining not just shipping between here and Hawaii, but it also constrains shipping between the islands. People don't necessarily know that.
Thank you. Affordable housing is a topic that goes on and on and on and on, and it was serious before COVID and probably even worse now.
Yeah, I'm not a politician. I forgot to mention that, but I'm not a politician. I'm a general contractor. This is what I do for a living. So I understand the building regulations and the fees and the cost of housing. And the reason for the cost of housing in Hawaii by far is the cost of fees and regulations for the contractor and the developer. The state plays a significant part because it has land management policies within the Department of DLNR. DLNR can actually open up lands for development. This is not just an idea. It's a reliable source for people to actually develop the land. It should not be subsidized by tax credits. It should not be Section 8 housing. It should be land owned by the people so that they can generate wealth and have legacy. And then finally, one of the biggest issues we have on Oahu, and I'm sure you do on the Big Island as well, is you have military spending entering the marketplace. You have numerous properties that are being rented out, and the best possible renter is a military family. They get a large siphon, much higher than the average local person can afford. The military must start providing housing on their own federally allocated property. This can be negotiated in the upcoming lease agreements with the military, but it's a key component driving up rents and the cost of living.
Thank you. What is your position on astronomy?
Astronomy. I'm not an astronomer. I love the night sky. I'm fascinated by it. I'm not sure about those types of things, but I can tell you the issue with TMT and astronomy is really about broken promises. You have the Kanaka Maoli that live on the Big Island. They don't see the island the way others see the island. They actually see Mauna Kea as a sacred place. And so when the government moved to put these telescopes on the island, they initially broke their promises by saying that they would remove certain telescopes. They would remove the polluted ground, the ground that had mercury in it. They broke their promise. They didn't do that. And they continue to press on for the development for TNT. Then through executive order, to make things worse, Governor Ige authorizes the police department to arrest citizens who have the lawful right to protest. The ball has gone out of bounds. The people have been dismissed and betrayed. And until government actually understands that their role in society is to serve and listen to the people, to listen carefully to what's going on for the people, and then have reasonable conversations, reason together and gather wisdom and build a coalition that everybody goes, yes, we can do this. I think if the government goes back, it's like a soccer match. They go back where the ball went out of bounds, they put the ball back in bounds where it went out, and maybe it can move forward. But right now it is stuck, and it is stuck because people have been betrayed and they're offended. The governor has a role, and I will initiate these conversations not only on TNT, but all public policy.
Thank you. Let's talk about education. How would you work with the Department of Education?
Department of Education is a complex organization. I think there's a number of things that need to be done. And the first and most primary is we need a constitutional amendment back in Hawaii, allowing the parents to have a say in the curriculum of their students. And I think it was in 1978, there was a law passed where that authority to determine the curriculum was given to the Department of Education. That piece alone has taken the people out of the equation, and this is not good for government on any level. Other things that should be done, education in Hawaii should be decentralized. There's no way a school in Molokai can be managed the same way as a school in Kahala on Oahu. These are different communities. These school boards in these communities should have budget authority. They should determine what their budget should be used for, and they should develop their own budgets. And that should be submitted to the state, and it should be managed per county. And in addition, then finally, I would say with regard to school and performance of our kids, we spend about $15,000 a year per student, but we year over year, decade after decade, have some of the lowest proficiency standards in the nation. We must introduce merit pay to the teachers and concentrate on core elements of education, not social programs. These programs that are coming in from the mainland, social credit, gender identification, CRT theories, woke education. This is not education. We have a responsibility as citizens, as educators, to prepare the kids for what's next. And so I would say that those are the changes that need to occur. Those resources that are supposed to make it down to the kids, the students, they don't make it down there. The vast majority of these education budgets get stuck in the administrative level. So we need actual accounting for how budgets are spent in Hawaii, not just with the DOE, but all the departments.
Thank you. Let's talk about the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. The 2022 legislature funded $600 million for DHHL to expedite getting the Hawaiians into the housing and onto the land. What would you do if elected to help the department expedite use of these funds in appropriate ways?
Lonnie, that's a great question. And I think there's an underlying issue that's really not being talked about. And that's the fact that the Hawaiian homelands are lease lands. I really believe that the Hawaiian people should own their land. I know this is a Department of Interior issue, it's a congressional issue, but the people of Hawaii should own their land. This idea that they're on leased land by the government and that they have to maintain a 50% blood quantum to be eligible for Hawaiian homelands should not be a policy for the people. The people of Hawaii should own their lands. This is the same thing with how DLNR is functioning in our state. The idea that if a person takes some of the $600 million, they're taken off that Hawaiian Homes list. They're actually, that's $112,000 per person. If you accept this money as a person, a Hawaiian person that's been here for generations, you're no longer eligible for that property. So the implementation of that $600 million is very, very important. Whether or not that $600 million ever makes it to somebody's doorstep, that's a question of accountability and administration. I honestly believe what we need to do is we need to create the opportunity for the Hawaiian people to own their legacy land so that when the kapuna passes away, that piece can be passed on lawfully and legally and permanently to their heirs. Doesn't go back into a lease pool. That's exactly how it is now. So I'm going to promote and reason together with the main stakeholders in the Hawaiian community. And we're see if we can generate some private funds to underwrite the development of these lands. And these lands need to be developed. So that's my position.
Thank you. What is your position on economy?
The economy in Hawaii. Well, you know, I happen to agree with the doctor on the previous call to some degree, and that is we need private industry to pick up the slack. The economy in Hawaii is suffering because we put all of our eggs, you heard the proverbial eggs in the basket, the tourism basket, the resources generated from the tourism basket. What we really need in Hawaii is we need a diversified economy. I mentioned it earlier about local produce, dairy, poultry, beef, but we also need high-tech industry here. Our location globally, because of its time zone, we are ideally located to be a hub, a high-tech hub. We should have government-private partnerships attracting high-tech industry here so that when the kids go to school, they can actually get a job here. Those kinds of jobs can be managed and they'll be beneficial for generations. They're not just for a short-term fix, but they'll actually create projects that will generate resources for the people.
Thank you. Thinking about infrastructure, what are your thoughts on capital improvement projects?
Well, you know, we need capital improvement project, but we don't need the one we have now. I can tell you that. This, and I feel exceedingly bad for the folks that live on the neighbor islands who are underwriting and will forever be underwriting the rail. Capital improvement projects, I think we need scalable desalinization. I think we need it on Maui, Molokai, on Oahu. There is deep water wells on the Kona side, the west side of the Big Island, but we need capital improvement projects that are long range, thoughtful, and scalable. But we don't have to create these projects. There's currently over 20,000 desalinization industries around the world now. Wisdom just says, let's go out and find out what works in another state, in another country, globally. Let's find out what works and bring them to Hawaii. Let's implement policy that actually works. This is what's missing with our planners here. So many of our planners here and the decisions that are made are about appeasing stakeholders. They're not actually thoughtful policies for the people. We need long-term energy. We need water resources. We need hydrogen power. We need hydrogen electric power. And fusion, I believe fusion is around the corner. Maybe 10, 20 years, but fusion power is the binding of atoms. It's not nuclear power. But these are the kinds of things that we need for Hawaii for a true sustainable future.
Thank you. So for administrative goals, as governor, you will be tasked with appointing numerous department heads and deputies. How do you plan to make these selections, and what do you look for when selecting key cabinet and staff members?
I love that question because oftentimes as a businessman, I've hired many people over the years. I've been doing this for 40 years. And I've come to realize that over the years that what you hire is character. Tasks and responsibilities and administrative duties can be trained. You can train people, but if you hire character, you hire people who have integrity, who have people of honor, who will not be corrupted, who will actually stand responsible and make hard decisions and speak the truth. Our state is longing for leaders who will just simply speak the truth. We must put in position of leadership, the directors or the deputy directors, the opportunity for people who will sit in there with wisdom. Wisdom is people whose character invites a conversation, who will reason together with all people. Truth and wisdom doesn't have an R or a D. It stands alone. We need people who will actually think thoughtfully, make requests about what needs to happen in our various agencies, implement these things, and give the people access to understand why the decision was made, how the resources are being spent. I'm talking about transparency. I'm talking about corruption, how these activities actually happen, and why do certain projects go in the back room one way and they come out in another way? Why? Because of corruption. Corruption is undermining everything that we long for here. It's top to bottom. And so we need people in positions of authority that have integrity and that trust, integrity, and honor. And there's a lot of solutions. There's 192. So yeah.
Thank you. One last question, Mr. Cordery. Please share one specific thing, such as a project or service that you helped start or have dedicated a lot of time to, that you think demonstrates or clarifies why residents should vote for you as our next governor.
I'll share a couple of things. I've been married 41 years, and my wife and I love each other more than ever. And our kids honor us, and they're responsible citizens. I think there's no greater measure. But from a practical standpoint, I've worked with numerous nonprofits and schools who have great vision. They're not DOE schools, they're private schools. They have great vision, they have great plans, but they don't have great finances. And I'll work with these organizations for 1, 2, 3, 5 years, working through modeling, value engineering, research, making sure that their core dreams are achieved. And this process has been so rewarding, not just for myself, but for them as well. So thank you, Lonnie. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Mr. Cordery.
Aloha.
Thank you, Mr. Cordery. We'll give you one more minute to kind of wrap things up if you want to share any last remarks. So please go right ahead.
James, thank you so much. I just want to say that how honored I am to have lived here since 1980, 81. I can tell you that these seasons have brought great deal of experience, understanding what it means, understanding the heart of the people. And I bring courage and honesty to this office. I will stand for the people. I will not bend. I have stood for the people on the streets of Waikiki for 2 years, and it hasn't always been popular, but it's always been for the liberty of the people. It's always upheld the Constitution and the civil rights of the people. And I will bring that kind of integrity to government. Not to mention, I bring great experience as a general contractor. All the aspects of government, the formulating of policy, the understanding of vision, the implementation of resources, timelines, all of these things are part of what it means to be a successful general contractor. And finally, I will pray hard and trust God. I honestly know that at the end of the day, if the Lord God does not walk with us as a people, that not only are we going to suffer in every way, but we will suffer socially and spiritually beyond measures that we cannot change. So I just thank you. Thank you for this time. And
Thank you.
God bless you all. Aloha.
Aloha, Mr. Cordery. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Wish you all the best. Aloha.
Aloha.
All right, moving along here. Thank you, everyone. We have our next guest moving in the room right now, so I appreciate your patience. Aloha, Congressman Kai Kahele. Thank you for joining us. I'll make sure you're unmuted there, and then if you could give yourself a 2-minute self-introduction, that'd be amazing. Thank you for joining us.
Aloha, James, here in Los Angeles, on my way back to Hawaii after a very productive week in Washington, D.C. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with the Waimea Community Association and looking forward to some good dialogue and questions this evening. You know, James, I launched my campaign on May 7th with 98 days to go before the August 13th primary election, with a clear focus on reestablishing community trust in government and taking bold action to put our state in a new direction. A great experience and a lot of I'm looking forward to bringing back to Hawaii. And the relationship I've been able to build, institutional knowledge I've been able to gain that is a great value to the state of Hawaii, especially in light of a historic investment in our nation's infrastructure and almost $2.8 to $3 billion that will be coming to the state in hard infrastructure over the next 5 years. That really needs a champion and someone to lead the state to get this important infrastructure investments out into our local economy. And so anyways, great to be here and thanks so much. Looking forward to the questions.
Absolutely. So we're going to welcome in Lonnie once again, and she'll fire away with a bunch of questions for the next 16 minutes here. So welcome, Lonnie. Thank you for asking the congressman here.
Aloha, Congressman. Welcome. Mahalo for joining us this evening.
Aloha. Mahalo.
Let's start out with how you would address the cost of living, the rising cost of living here in the state that forces so many to leave the state.
You know, it is a major issue for Hawaii right now. It's not just the cost of living, it's also the cost of doing business. It's inflation, it's the pain that many of our residents in Hawaii are feeling at the pump right now. We have gotten to a point in Hawaii where people have lost hope and they don't feel like this is an economy that they can thrive in. And we have currently the largest out-migration of Hawaii residents that are moving to the continental United States. And it's largely because our gross domestic product, the economy, which is about a $95 billion economy, year over year has been growing at a rate of less than 2%. Our cost of living is growing year over year at an average rate of 4%. And so that math equation just does not work out for local families and is an unsustainable economic model for Hawaii. At its core, Hawaii's economy is classified as a mature economy, which means our growth of the existing economy without major intervention is nearly impossible, and it's going to continue to grow at 2%. So the key to our future is to pivot our economy to one that functions more harmoniously with Hawaii, its people, and its place. And it will require innovative thinking. It will require working together with the business community. It's all about jobs and good paying jobs and making sure local families can, raise their family here, look at Hawaii as a place where they can educate their children, and their children, when they graduate from high school and they decide what career path they want to take in their life, feel that there is a job that they can live here in Hawaii and afford a home and be able to raise their families. And so, those are some of the things that I think that, at its core, we need to do is to grow the economy.
Mahalo. As governor, what is your vision for agriculture?
Agriculture is a untapped and always has been. We've been talking about agriculture for decades, but we haven't invested in what we need to do to grow a thriving agriculture industry. And it's not just agriculture, it's agribusiness, it's agriculture, aquaculture, the cattle industry. And so one of the things that I'll do as part of my administration in its first year is to propose targeting a 3% of the state budget, which would be a 2.6% increase from the current less than 0.5% of the overall state budget that goes to agriculture. We need to get the state's investment in agriculture back to its pre-2008 levels when you factor in inflation. We need to, work with the Hawaii Department of Agriculture and the other state agencies like the Agriculture Development Corporation to really chart out a strategic blueprint for the state and to create a agricultural industry that can thrive in Hawaii. Right now we import over 80% of our food to the state. We are not, sustainable. And if there is any type of, global calamity, another health pandemic, any type of natural disaster to the state, we are a week to 2 weeks away from being in a very, very difficult position to feed our people. And so one of the things that I think we need to do is invest heavily into the Department of Agriculture and work with our partners throughout the state that are part of our poultry, our cattle, our dairy industry, our egg industry to grow that agriculture industry so that we can be more resilient when it comes to local food production.
Perfect. And along with feeding our people, housing is another issue. Can you share some specific strategies, how you would pursue to address the affordable housing issue?
Housing is a major issue for many of us across the state. Right now, the average cost of a home on the island of Oahu is $1.2 million. And it's not far off either on the islands of Kauai and Maui. A matter of fact, Waimea is expensive, so is Kona. Hilo moderately priced, and you can still, get a decent home down in the, the lower part of East Hawaii, down in Puna. But I really believe we've overcomplicated the process of building affordable housing. At its core, anyone that builds a home will tell you that building homes is not hard, but we've really made it hard to build homes. We've made it hard in planning and permitting. The fact that it takes months to get a permit out of the building department, the cost of materials has gone up dramatically. And so I really believe that there are two actions that we could take to turn the tide of affordable housing for our residents. And part of that would be working together with the counties to properly work on how they're planning, permitting, and the regulations that government has over housing. And the second thing that government can do is to offset the expensive costs of regional infrastructure. And I think if we combine looking at the regulatory process and just speed up and enhance the planning and permitting process, and also work together at the federal, state, and county levels on regional infrastructure development, I think we can reverse this trend on our community where the housing prices continue to go up, up, and up. And so those are some things that I think we can do. Government can put in regional infrastructure for roads, for water, for sewer, for public facilities, all prioritized around affordable housing.
Thank you. What is your position on astronomy?
Oh, my childhood hero was Ellison Onizuka. I wanted to be an astronaut. And, I remember meeting Ellison at YK Elementary School when I was, about 8, 9, 10 years old. And, I ended up going to space camp. I was one of those students, like millions across the country, that watched the Challenger explode live on television. And so the combination of getting a chance to know Ellison Onizuka personally, the combination of getting to know Maupi'ailug in the mid-1980s down in Miloli'i before Hokulea sailed to Tahiti to learn about the stars was something that always captivated me as a little boy. And so, I firmly support astronomy in Hawaii, especially as it exists today on Mauna Kea. And, Hawaii plays a critical role in astronomy for the mere fact that our ancient native Hawaiian ancestors and those that migrated to the Hawaiian Islands did so via the stars. They were the greatest navigators and astronomers of their time. They were the astronauts of their generation, of their time. And so, as a native Hawaiian, I think there is a strong connection to the stars, and is one that I see great value in for Hawaii.
Talking about education, how will you work with the Department of Education?
Well, the greatest and most important responsibility the governor of Hawaii has when it comes to education is appointing the Board of Education. In the first 6 months of the next term for whoever serves as governor of Hawaii, that governor will be appointing 3 new members to the Board of Education. And so I really feel like the most important thing I'm going to do in the first 100 days in terms of education is make sure that I can review and nominate 3 new members to that Board of Education that have the same vision, values that I have as somebody who is a product of Hawaii's public education system. I'm a proud product of Waiakea and Hilo High School. I graduated in 1992, went to HCC, UH Hilo, and graduated from UH Manoa with a degree in education. My original career plan was to be a PE teacher. Came back home to Hilo, got certified as a substitute teacher, and taught in Hilo public schools for 2 years. And 2 of my sisters and my brother-in-law are both teachers in the DOE. And so, I feel like I have a pilina and a kuleana to help grow our public education system. My wife and I made a conscious decision to continue to educate our two daughters in the public education system. They go to a public charter school, Navahio Kalani Opu'u, one of the top Hawaiian immersion schools in the state, that emphasizes culture, place-based education. And so, we have an opportunity as parents to understand the challenges that Hawaii's public education system and our teachers deal with every single day, because our kids are part of the public education system. And I think that's something that is an important value to have if you're an elected official. At its core, our teachers are the heart and soul of any school, any campus. And so I really believe there's things we need to do within the Department of Education regarding facilities. I'm a strong supporter of early childhood education and universal preschool, something I helped champion and worked on as part of the House Democratic Caucus in the Congress. And, I'm really looking forward to working with our teachers to find out what they need and how we can make their learning environments, their teaching environments better, how we can pay them what they're worth, how we can work on targeted workforce housing to help our teachers, how we can compensate student teachers when they graduate from UH. When I was at UH, I did some student teaching and never went on to be a fully certified teacher. But I know that many of my classmates that had to go do student teaching weren't getting paid to be student teachers. And so that's one of the things that I think we need to address so that we can recruit from within. Right now we have a model where we are recruiting and bringing in teachers from the mainland because we're not recruiting from within our local school system and placing a value of our kids when they're in school and when they're graduating from high school that can look at being a teacher as a viable career path for them in Hawaii. And so I think that's something that we need to change. And there's a lot of things we can do, but the most important thing I can do as governor of Hawaii is appoint the Board of Education.
Thank you. And talk about appointing. What would you look for when selecting your key cabinet and staff members?
Well, the first thing I'm going to look for is individuals that are competent, are qualified, that want to be there. Every cabinet position or every individual that wants to be a part of my cabinet will apply for the position. And they need to aspire to a certain mission and vision and values that I feel are critical and vital to the state of Hawaii. And one of the things that I'm doing differently from any of the other candidates across the state is I'm intentionally taking out a major factor in what historically has played into appointing individuals to different politically appointed positions, and that's the influence of money in our campaigns. And so, one of the things that the voters can rest assured of is that if elected to be governor, and as I develop the important, critical, vital cabinet positions, and then individuals who serve on boards and commissions, that I will be, and your governor's office will not be beholden to any lobbyists, to any special interests, to any outside mainland money, to any corporations that fund and are currently funding and funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars into the campaigns of my opponents.
Thank you. I got two more questions, but we only have 2 more minutes. If you can just give us a quick synopsis on how you would diversify our economy and what part should tourism play in this?
I'm really excited that the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement has been selected to take over the tourism or the visitor industry contract through the Hawaii Tourism Authority. It's the first time Native Hawaiians will be marketing Hawaii and what that marketing looks like and what that type of tourist looks like. I mean, clearly tourism has always been part of Hawaii's economy. Being in the military for the last 21 years, I know how important the military is to our economy, but we clearly have to diversify our economy. We can't depend on just tourism and the military. You started off early in the questions about agriculture. I think agriculture is a key component of diversifying Hawaii's economy. We're already doing it on a small scale, but there's so much more we can do. Hawaii Island, where all of you are right now in Waimea, is, I believe, the key to Hawaii's agricultural future and diversifying the economy around agriculture. I think there's also things that the state can do to attract industry and business to the state, venture capital to the state. And I believe the University of Hawaii is a critical partner.
Okay, Congressman, we're like squeezing in time, but one last question.
Sure.
What motivates you to want to become governor in such difficult times? And if you can, just give us a hint of what your thoughts are on the 30-meter telescope.
For me, one of the things that I'm coming home to run for governor of Hawaii is because I really believe that this state is starving for leadership, and it's really vital. And the issues that we have facing Hawaii over the next decade, 30-meter telescope included, Makua Valley, Red Hill, Pohakaloa, all of these issues directly correlate with the Native Hawaiian community. And I really believe that it is time that a Native Hawaiian governor lead the state to solve many of these very, very challenging and divisive issues in our state, and that only a Native Hawaiian can solve these issues. And so I believe that my military experience, growing up on Hawaii Island, the skill sets I bring as a former state senator, as a current sitting member of the United States Congress, the federal experience that I will be bringing back to Hawaii is a value added for the office of the governor.
Thank you, Congressman. Your time is up. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. James, you're muted.
Thanks, Lonnie. All right. Thank you, Congressman, for joining us. It's good to see you on here. All right. We have a little bit of a reprieve before our next candidate. So we're going to do kind of a recap of elections and look over some maps possibly. But we do have a couple more candidates here at the top of the hour. So grateful to have Donna Oba back in here with us to kind of recap what we talked about earlier and really share some of this important information as our voters go to the polls. So Donna, thanks for joining us again.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. We talked about registering to vote and that there's different ways of doing it. You could do it online if you have a state ID. You can do it in person with a paper application by going to the county elections office or DMV, or you can come to our voter registration, which we're going to have on August 2nd and 3rd. And Hawaii is pretty great at being able to register to vote right when you're going to vote. So right before you get that ballot, you can register to vote. And there's a lot of different ways to vote. So that's the next slide. You can, as I said, you can vote in person on election day, but we also have early voting, which is the 10 days preceding election day. You can vote from slightly reduced hours, 8:30 to 4, no Sundays, of course, and then on election day, it's from 7 in the morning to 7 p.m. The advantage is that you can vote. It does have electronic voting, so it is accessible for those who might need that. But there's only 2 locations, one in Kona and then one in Hilo. And we also have a vote by mail. And everybody will be mailed a ballot who's registered by July 26th. So, but you got to keep in mind that when you mail in a ballot, the ballot must be received by 7 p.m. on election day, or it won't get counted. So either remember to mail it in early or use drop boxes, and there will be 9 around the Big Island. Talking a little bit more about voting by mail, that's the next slide, please. There's some tips. Make sure you look at both sides of the ballot. You're supposed to use a certain colored pen. There's 2 envelopes. One is a secrecy envelope. The other one is the return envelope. So you put your ballot in the secrecy envelope and you put both in the return envelope, but please remember to sign the return envelope on the outside. And again, drop it in the mail or drop it in your drop box. And then, so the important dates to remember are the primary election day, which is August 13th. And the general election is November 8th, but the deadline to receive your ballot by mail will be August 3rd to register, or October 31st. And there are some other important dates to kind of keep in mind, especially for the primaries. The next slide, please. 26th is, keep in mind that date, because that's when you should be receiving your mail ballot. So that's when we should have it in hand. You can walk into early voting center August 1st through 13th, but you can also drop off your completed ballot rather than put it in the mail. The 9 drop boxes will become available on beginning August 1st. And then if you're out of the state and won't be home, you can request a absentee ballot, but the deadline for that is August 6th. So what's new coming up? The next slide. What's new in 2022? We can track our mailed ballot. There's a new feature, and you can sign up online, hawaii.ballottracks.net. You can see the website there. And that allows you to follow your ballot within 24 days after you send it in or drop it off. And you can see from mailed to accepted if you actually voted. And finally, again, in 2022, next slide, please. We've got nearly 400 candidates in about 165 races. Hawaii County voters in the primary will see 11 of those races. So how do you get more information about candidates and what races you'll see on your ballot? Go to League's website. It's an online voter guide called vote411.org. And you'll find links to voter registration, candidate information, and other place, as well as a link to the ballot tracks. So thank you very much for this quick update, and hope to see you on voting day. Aloha.
And thank you, Donna. Just a quick question about Vote 411. What are they going to see? The ballot? They can each see their ballot then? That's what do they have to enter in to see their ballot?
You enter in your residence, and it should pull up all the candidates who are running for office that you will see on your ballot that's going to be mailed. And then we ask candidates like this forum, but in a much shorter format, questions about their positions on certain issues. I'm sorry about the glare.
That's okay. And so what are some of those questions that you've asked them that they're responding to that viewers can see and voters can see?
Well, the site was designed for a lot of the younger people who actually look at information on their phone, but we do ask them for their 2 top priorities and what experience or background they have that they bring to the office and why they're running for office. And then we do have a question about climate change. And for some of our state legislators, or all the legislators, we ask how they might perceive or stop the perception or appearance of corruption, because that is a real concern that we find our voters have. Is there still democracy?
And have you had a pretty good turnout from the candidates to be able to send information on this? And how can they get that information on there to the voters?
We've been contacting every single candidate who's filed for office, if they have a phone or an email that we can contact them with. And so we're sending them an email survey. If they haven't received one, they can reach out to the League of Women Voters of Hawaii, and we'll follow up on that as quickly as we can. We had a very short filing period, which made it difficult to contact everyone. And many people do file very late in the process. You've heard that from some of the candidates. And so we didn't have we weren't confident that they would file for that office, so we held off a bit. So now we're trying to ensure that they have access to the website and their survey, and they can post their answers as quickly as possible. The minute we do not edit any of their answers, the minute they submit, it's posted on the website.
And you charge candidates a fee for this information?
No, this is a League of Women Voters believes in an open and transparent government. We believe that voters need information and education in order to make reasonable and informed decisions as they participate in democracy. So this is completely free to the candidates.
That's fantastic. It's a wonderful service, Donna, and I really appreciate you and all the league members for putting this together and all of your hard work in calling the candidates and making sure that they can share this information out with the voters and the viewers. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
And one other question, the ballots, when they enter their addresses in and they can see their ballot, they can see all the individuals that be on their ballot. Has it incorporated any of the new maps and the new reapportionment and redistricting effort? Has that all been updated?
Yes, it should be. And that was another challenge too. That delayed the period in which we can contact candidates because the candidates didn't know where their new districts were going, lines were going to be drawn. So maybe you can talk about that, and it has changed. You know, you might not see your own council member or state legislator as you did before.
And so Vote 401 could be one of those resources where they do see their new district lines then possibly after entering their address.
We don't have the maps, but it should pull up their district that they will be voting in. Yes.
Indicated on their ballot then. Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. That's a great resource. So I will dive into the maps here a little bit. Donna, anything else you wanted to share with our viewers here this evening?
No, but if they do, we do have on the last slide the league's website, but lwvh.org is our Hawaii League. And so if you go to that, there's ways of contacting us. But all you need to do to get more information is also go to Vote 411. Just type in VOTE 411. It's a website that's used throughout the United States by leagues in all 50 states.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Donna. Appreciate you
Thank
joining
you.
us once again and kind of diving into that. And I appreciate the league support and getting the word out and supporting our voters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have a little bit of time here still yet before our next candidate jumps in. So I wanted to actually show a couple of the maps and the resources that are out there, because we did touch on this briefly. Some of the information that you can find on our elections office website. This is the state office website, and also some details about some of the changes. And, you know, particularly for our Waimea viewers, some of the changes that are being happen here at the county level and some of the adjustments that are being made there. So if you go, and I'm going to put up a couple of things here and just show you up on the office elections website and where you can find this information. All right, so if you're just curious, this is where a lot of information you can find about the candidates, their candidate filings, their reports, any financial statements, as well as a lot of other resources about how you register to vote. And Donna did talk about this, and it takes you right to these sorts of locations where register to vote here. And all these links up here help direct and guide viewers and voters to these locations. So one particular resource here is under this tab of resources, and there are a couple of maps that the voters can see and help guide where you are. It's best to probably download them and blow them up into a bigger screen so that you can see what district and precincts you're in, as well as the House and Senate seats. There's also the district and precincts link here. And I'm going to show you a couple of those maps here, particularly for our Waimea viewers in North Hawaii and South Kohala area here. All right, so I'm just going to switch over here. So we did recently go through reapportionment here at the state level. There was a commission to reapportion based upon population numbers and look at the lines, the district lines for our state Senate seats, as well as our state House seats, and as well as the congressional seats too. So this map here shows the reapportionment, and this is just an example, but this is of Waimea and the surrounding communities along Hamakua, South Kohala, and of course North Kohala, that really explains and details as best as possible the district lines that have shifted and changed here from the State Reapportionment Commission effort. And if you're familiar all with the previous maps, you can probably see some adjustments that have been made. And if you do go to the League of Women Voters Vote 401 website, then you can see the actual ballot that you'll be receiving based upon where you live, as they consider all the sort of information here. So it's best, as I said, to download these and really zoom in and really capture what these boundaries are. They are trying to be very specific about what markers, geographic markers, are separate in the new boundaries. But from my knowledge, this, especially for the Senate District 4 map for North Hawaii here, our 4th senatorial district, this line did shift here outside of Hilo, and it did shift northward. So the district kind of shifted that way towards Hamakua, and the Southern District shifted as well along the Kona side. So there's the changes there. Now with the House district, this was a big change, and there was a bit of a back and forth on this at the state reapportionment, as well as from community members across the state to really weigh in on this process, not just with this House seat, but also with the state Senate seat and this reapportionment effort. This here indicates the new House District 8 that was carved into the Hawaii Island. Originally we had 7, and now we've gained an 8th House seat based upon population changes. And this was a point of contention and a big discussion at the state reapportionment effort. And some of the changes that, if you're familiar with this district at all, that used to be 7 is now 8. Most of it has more or less remained the same along the eastern boundary. But if you look and zoom in towards the southern side of this district, it has shifted northward away from Kalawa and the Koloko area in North Kona there. So it's actually shifted as close as possible to Waikoloa Village, along using Waikoloa Road as one of those boundaries. And then it also did scoop up into towards Spencer Beach and Kaihai, and kind of at a juncture there with Kaihai Road, Okonipuli, and Queen Mamaloa Highway. So that's where that kind of juncture is there. So those are some of the bigger changes there to the district seat there for the House seat. And these are all available for you to download and view there. There are also some other maps on there. They are in a black and white. They're a little bit harder to decipher, but this does talk about the whole island, and it really dives into what were the precinct levels, as well as all the congressional seats, and has numerical codes for all of that. And then the last thing, and our guest is just about to join us here, the last thing I wanted to touch on was the reapportionment that happened at the county level. And some of the maps are yet to be really, I think, updated and shown on the county level, but there is a resource there that you can find through the Hawaii County redistricting effort. And it highlights some of the changes that were made to the 9 council seats for here on the Big Island. And there were some changes there, and it does dictate and highlight some of the deviations and the populations for each of those districts. This is a resource that can be made available. We can put up on the WCA website for you to view and check in on, and check your address and those sort of things. Well, that's about enough of me talking about redistricting and reapportionment, but I appreciate everyone staying on here for that, and we'll make those resources available. We have our new guest joined us here, so we'd like to welcome her in here. We have Miss Heidi Tsuneyoshi, and I'll just make sure she's good to go here. All right, welcome, Miss Tsuneyoshi. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll let you kick it right off and give you a 2-minute self-introduction. Please take it away.
Thank you so much. Aloha and good evening, everyone, in between meetings. So calling in from my car, but I'm so grateful for the opportunity to speak with you folks this evening and share a little bit about myself. My name is Heidi Tsuneyoshi, and I currently serve as the council member on Honolulu City Council for District 2. And District 2 starts from, if you know Oahu, starts in Milani Mauka and goes through Wahiwan, handles a lot of North Shore, which is the rural parts of Oahu, and comes to Kahalu. And so having been able to represent such a diverse area, and having the rural areas and areas that are many times underserved by feeling like urban Honolulu gets everything, very have been and continue to be very focused on making sure all voices are heard, that everyone is represented equally, and that everyone has the opportunity to resources that their community needs. So I was very excited to be able to serve in that capacity for the past a little over 3 years now. Before that, I served as a staff member for the previous council member, which led me into my run for council. And my background is in mental health services. I've worked in transitional and homeless shelters, women's prisons, early education, and was a coordinator for a statewide child abuse prevention program. So all of my career has been focused on public service, and that's really what I see my job as within the government to be. I don't like to say politician, but really a public servant for the people. Excuse me. I'm also a mother of 2 girls. My girls are 24 and 22. And so what really inspires me and has moved me to run for governor is the understanding that a lot needs to happen to ensure that our future generations are able to live here, that we leave a good place for them to be able to live. So my campaign is focused all around for the people, for our land, and for our future, and really want to focus the most on being a governor who brings local style government, which is more hands-on in your community, to the highest level of the state. And so really looking forward to doing things like this, coming out, talking stories, seeing what the needs are. And thank you again for this opportunity.
And thank you so much, Ms. Sunioshi. And I'm going to pass it over to one of our board members, Jeremy Madrid, to really dive into some of these tough questions and issues. So Jeremy, please take it away.
Hi, Heidi. It's so nice that you're with us tonight, and looking forward to some of your thoughtful, unique answers. So first of all, what I'd like to ask is how you're going to put together your team. If you're elected governor, you'll be tasked with appointing numerous department heads and deputies. How do you plan to make these selections, and what do you look for when you're selecting these key cabinet positions?
Thank you so much. That's a very good question, and thank you for that. Building a good team that's really has all the same heart for the people and for our future is going to be my focus, and want to do that building of the team in a very open and transparent way. So we'll be putting out a call to everyone who's been involved in the type of work that needs to happen, and see what they've done and see what they are focused on, and build the team that way. So not about being who you know or who you've been connected to, but really looking to what you've been doing, what your heart is for the people, and building a team that's all about that. So that is one of my main focuses, and something that I really feel is going to make it possible to do all that we have to do, is to get the people with the right heart.
Wonderful. Well, the next piece, once you get your team together, it's going to be important to really kind of focus on one of the topics that's really going around everybody's heads right now, is the cost of living. What strategies will you utilize to address the skyrocketing cost of living here? And it's impacting so many people. I personally know lots of people that have moved away. What do you plan to do? And please be really specific about it. It's important to get the details.
I will do that. Thank you so much. So fiscal responsibility in government is one of my main issues, and not just as a saying so, but as what I've been doing as a council member. Many of my family members have already moved away. My daughters feel like they can't really make a living here. So I'm in the same place with you with all of that. So one of the major things I've seen being on the council for the past 3 years, it's not really an issue of not having enough money, but how money is being spent in government. So really, first and foremost, would make a lot of cuts to things like cost overruns, change orders, consultants, and things that don't really translate to actual actionable items for the people. So first of all, make those cuts so that we really have a much leaner government process, and then really look at all the taxes and how taxes are being levied on the people. Just recently, as we know, the state allowed the counties to add another 3% TAT tax. And so it's really additions of more taxes and more taxes and more taxes. So really going to look to all those additional taxes that have been levied on the people and on businesses, and really turn things around as how we're doing with that, especially when it comes to the rail. The rail is something that really causes me a lot of great concern, and I've been very vocal about that, because there's a long tail to the tax burden with that project. So really look to that and make sure how we rein in the cost for that.
Well, piggybacking on your answer, affordable housing is something that kind of coincides with this. Truly affordable housing was a serious issue before COVID-19, and now it's a lot worse. Can you share two specific strategies that you can pursue to address the lack of affordable housing?
One is definitely moving forward on the tenets of the Department of Homelands and Hawaiian Homes Commission Act. And one that is really looking to provide a housing supply for Native Hawaiians, which has been waiting for, many have been waiting for many, many years, as we know. And that specifically looks to address the issue of housing for our people. And once we increase and able to do a large gain in the amount of housing we do with that category, that's going to allow us to do a lot more in other categories, other residents that are not Native Hawaiian who also need homes. And in that instance, do a moratorium on any development that is a luxury development with a certain percentage of affordable homes and call that affordable housing initiative, which it's not. So here in Oahu, we have a large area in Kakako where a lot of luxury type condos have been approved, and they can do a very small percentage of affordable housing and call that how we're addressing our affordable housing problem. That's never going to address it. So really approving and working with the counties for their general plans to make sure all developments are truly affordable housing projects, and not and put a moratorium on any other kind of projects, because really that's the only kind of development we should be focusing on right now.
Excellent. Upon the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, in 2022, legislature they funded $600 million for the DHHL to expedite Hawaiians into housing and onto land. Many agree that adequate funding for DHHL is long overdue, but managing this avalanche of funding will be a huge challenge. What do you do when you're elected? How are you going to expedite this?
So unfortunately, what I see happening with this last windfall is a lot of times what happens is there's an issue that people know that has been lacking and has been ongoing for a long time. And what I call it is kind of like a pacifier. So this funding source is kind of like a pacifier to say, here you go, here's some money, we're actually addressing it, we're doing something for you. There's a lot of issues with that money. There's a lot of hurdles that have to be jumped through and a certain timeline that has to be met for that money to be given. And so if the DHHL isn't able to meet those conditions, then it's easy to say, well, we tried to give the money and nothing happened. So the whole system that happens around Department of Hawaiian Homelands, Office of Hawaiian Affairs, Department of Land and Natural Resources for the land leases, all of that needs to be fixed, because right now it's working against the goals of actually moving forward and doing housing. As we know, the land is the most important part, being able to build, and the infrastructure on the land is the most important part that needs to be built. So as governor, we'll be looking the DLNR to make sure all the land leases are being upheld, that the leases are beneficial to the beneficiaries, and then make sure that money gets to the appropriate agencies to be able to move forward on infrastructure and true development.
Excellent. Well, upon that, capital improvement projects using low interest bound fundings are extremely important to fund major projects such as hospitals, schools, roads, bridges, constructions, and repair of airports, harbors, parks, etc. The state legislatures set priorities according to the budget. How are you going to work with the legislature to set the priorities, and what kind of criteria is you going to look at? Can if you have any kind of ideas for Hawaii Island as well?
So specifically, as I mentioned earlier, I represent here on Oahu a lot of the rural parts of Oahu, where a lot of times rural Oahu feels like they're left out of the projects, and urban Honolulu gets much of the funding and much of the attention in way of infrastructure projects. So as governor, I'm going to be very cognizant of that and make sure that we balance the budget and projects based on an fair and balanced way to address all communities' issues. So coming in as governor, one of my top issues is to go out to every community, identify the top infrastructure projects that we need to move on, and then not go out to consultants and not do any of those things that take up a lot of time, that eat up time and money in getting projects actually done. And just, if this is the project the community has been asking for a long time, let's move on it, do a design build instead of taking all this time with consultants, and just get projects underway as quickly as possible, because because as council member, I've seen CIP projects languish just because of one consultant goes up, then another consultant goes up, and ends up the project never actually finishes, but we spent millions of dollars on it, but really just for consultants to study it. So that's something that I would definitely address.
Thank you. I know your answers are all very thoughtful. And this is all kind of tied in with the economy. You know, in light of Hawaii's extreme reliance on tourism, and because of COVID-19, how do we move to a more diversified economy? And try maybe two specific examples of what we could do to diversify our economy, and specifically what we could do here on the Big Island as well.
Sure. Again, going back to my representation of a very diverse area, including a lot of the agricultural lands, when we were in the height of COVID-19, there was a lot of focus on and talk about diversifying our economy, and money and attention was given to jobs in agriculture and conservation and different things like that. And as soon as tourism opened back up again, that conversation died very, very quickly. So as it goes to diversifying our economy and making sure each community has something that they're working with within their own communities for jobs and for food security and different things, I'll be looking to each community to see where the opportunities are, in specifically in agriculture and any other industry that fits for that community, and provide supports, including infrastructure for agricultural lands, to truly provide every area of our state with the opportunities for diversified jobs, for agriculture, for diversified agriculture, and to make sure we can move forward on our food security issues so we greatly decrease our reliance on imports, because that's a very, very concerning thing for me as well. So I think there's really a lot that we can do. And the reason why I believe we can do all of that is because I've met so many people who are doing great things already, but they're really not being supported in their efforts. Kalo farmers, ranchers, all kind of people who know what to do and know how to do it. They just need support to be able to do it better and at a larger scale.
Okay, can you expand a little bit more on agricultural piece? I'm just trying to get a better picture about if we keep being told Hawaii Island has tremendous potential with diversified ag, but it's really slow going, and the farmers here are really frustrated. The Big Island there's a lot of farmers. I'm in a farming community myself, and there's a lot of talk, but it doesn't feel like there's serious support. How do you move things forward?
So really the infrastructure part and the ability to really have some security as far as being able to work a piece of land long term, and to collaborative efforts so that everyone that is working a large area of land is able to work together and share infrastructure costs such as water and different things like that. Even the opportunities to have coolers and other things that you need to be able to bring those produce to market, and then have that connection to the business sector to say these are the products that we have, this is what we want to push forward, and really connecting agriculture activities to small businesses, because that's how you create a system of everything working together and eventually everybody being better for it. So making those connections, I see, is the role of government, is not to stand in the way of, but to help the connections for growth in communities and strength and resiliency within communities, because that's how we know we're going to make it through any future, hopefully not crisis that we have.
Well, speaking of crisis, I'm not sure how you feel on climate change, but climate change really puts Hawaii at risk. And this ties in with ag as well, because the changing climate means changing agriculture. The sea level could rise. We had the biggest wildfire of all time last year. There's coral bleaching, there's more intense storms. What's the plan? I think the plan should have been a long time ago, but what would be your plan moving forward? Or if maybe it's not even something on your platform?
Well, for climate change, one of the main issues I have is how we're always talking about studying climate change and figuring out how it's changing our homes, but not really doing the action items on how to protect our homes from the effects of climate change. So as an example, much of my community that I represent now is along the shoreline. So as we know, coastal erosion is a huge thing. As you know, for your community with the wildfires, that was that really had a tremendous impact on your community. We know things like this are happening, things like this have the potentials to exist, but how do we protect our homes and our community from those events? So for shoreline erosion, how do we look at a managed retreat to make sure that we help the homeowners know this is the plan should something happen to your home? And same for a community like yours with the wildfires. If there is a wildfire and your home is damaged, your home is unfortunately maybe unsalvageable, what is your options? How is the government standing ready to help you? So I think we need to have a plan on how to help community members once they are impacted by the effects of climate change. And so I know for even the wildfires and for the lava flow and different issues that happen, a lot of residents are still waiting for the help that was promised. And as governor would make sure that those things and funding is already in order, so you don't have to wait to figure out what do I do since this happened.
Thank you. I know these questions are pretty rapid fire, and you're doing spectacular. Upon the science kind of question, what's your take on the 30-meter telescope? It's a big issue here on the Big Island,
Right.
as well as probably in the whole state of Hawaii.
Mm-hmm. So as a Native Hawaiian, and just as someone who has concerns for when the people stand in opposition to a project based on things that have happened and based on a history of management or lack of management, respect or lack of respect, I actually came to Mauna Kea when was to see what was going on, and really felt that it's time to take a pause. So I'm not in support of the construction of the 30-meter telescope. I do feel that a lot of people say, well, does that mean that you don't support astronomy? I think there has to be a connection made finally to know that when an area is mismanaged and when an area is disrespected and when an area is not being treated in the way that beneficiaries feel it should be treated, then it really calls to those who have been involved in what has happened already to determine what happens going forward. So at this time, I wouldn't support the construction and would say go back to talking to the beneficiaries, talking to the people, and see how we best move forward for the sacred place.
Wonderful. Last question. Can you please share one specific, maybe a project, something that you put service into and you dedicated a lot of time to, kind of accentuates your character and your personal qualities?
Sure. So one thing that I really am grateful to share and to talk to you about today is the ability to look to every community and to address their specific needs. So as I talked about, I manage 40% of the island here on Oahu, and every community is so different. Every need is so different. So was able to get millions of dollars of money for CI community improvement projects underway. Some communities hadn't had their roads resurfaced in 30 years and they thought it would never ever happen. And just seeing that you're able to get a road repair, another community hadn't had their gym even looked at in over 30 years. Another community had a leaking roof. So I was able to do a lot of CIP projects that really make people feel, oh, you see me, you know my community, you know my specific needs, and you came through. And that's what I think people need to see, that you know, not only see what's happening in each community, but you're able to come through and make things better for people in their daily lives. So really working forward on that. It's a long process, as you know, for everybody who's known how government projects works. It takes a lot of time and focused attention to move it from getting the funding to actually getting construction and getting the project done. So I'm very grateful that I was able to be successful in that for my communities, and look forward to doing that for the whole state and just really focus on each community specifically.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yoshi, we're going to give you 1 minute to kind of say any last remarks you'd like to, so please take it away.
Sure. I just wanted to say thank you so very much for this opportunity to speak with you tonight. Feel free to reach out to me. My website is www.heidiforhawaii.com. I look forward to continued conversations if you have any further questions that you may have, but really just to remember that as a gubernatorial candidate and making sure to move forward in the best way, it really is to ensure that we have a place that we can all be proud to call home, and that our kids and our grandkids and our next generations can also call this place home, and that we have a place for them to be that's safe and resilient and that they feel good about living here. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Inoshi. All the best to you. Aloha.
Thank you so much. Aloha.
All right. we do have a little bit of a downtime here. We're waiting for our next candidate to call in. So going to keep you online here, and we're going to stay on until the candidates pop in here. Wanted to just update our viewers that next week, Thursday, we're also holding this forum as well for the lieutenant governors, those candidates there. We've established the same criteria as we did for this evening. Those two criteria being that those candidates have filed by the filing deadline, which was Tuesday, the 7th. And the second criteria is that they've, through means of transparency, that they have shown and filed their campaign spending reports through the Campaign Spending Commission, and have and those dictate a positive campaign account balance. So that was the reason why we, just to look at the different field here for the gubernatorial candidates, and we're doing the same for the LG candidates. And then for our viewers, especially those interested in the Waimea area, we're looking at two forums to be held in July. The first being on July 7th, and we're going to be looking at 3 different seats that evening. That will be Senate District 4, House District 8, and then we're going to look at both of the council seats that impact the Waimea area and affect the Waimea area. That's County Council number 9 and County Council number 1. So that's what we have lined up for July 7th. And then for July 14th, we're also looking at another opportunity to meet with some other candidates. This will more detail be to follow on this one, but we're going to hopefully meet with the U.S. congressional seat. So both the U.S. Senator seat and then as well as the U.S. Rep seat for District 2. So the kind of rural Oahu and the Outer Islands for District 2 there. I do apologize. We don't see the next candidate calling in quite yet. So we'll just stay here online until they call in. You're welcome to step away for a little bit if you'd like. Get a drink of water, get something to eat. I understand, and thank you for your patience. We've talked about redistricting, reapportionment. We've had some recap on voting and the process that's upcoming this year. And we're just going to take a moment here to step away and wait to see our next candidate call in. So please don't go anywhere, and we'll be right with you. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, moving back into things. Sorry about that, everyone. Auntie Lonnie, did you want to jump on and just talk about upcoming Christmas parade at all? I can give you a moment to kind of discuss that. We're just waiting for one more candidate. They'll be calling in here in a moment. So Lonnie, why don't you just take a moment to talk about our Waimea Christmas parade?
Okay, sure. I'd like to take advantage of this opportunity to say that we are once again going to have a real Waimea Twilight Christmas parade. As usual, it'll be the first Saturday in December. The difference this year, however, is that our route will change. So instead of starting at Church Road like we normally do and coming through town and ending up at the Waimea Park, we're actually going to start at the Waimea Park, come on to Lindsay Road with a left onto Mamalahoa Highway and a right onto Pukalani, and then going down to Ala Ohia, and we're actually going to end up at the Waimea District Park in the back. This will allow us to have 15 narrator stations. We probably could use more, but we would try for 15. And people will be able to spread out more on that back road and enjoy the parade. So hope you can all join us for our 62nd annual parade. Aloha.
Thank you so much, Lonnie. I really appreciate that. Wonderful. We're really excited to go back out and be in person with Christmas parade in Waimea, and really excited to see the new longer route. That should be fun. And hopefully get a lot more people jumping in and wanting to showcase their vehicles and march in the parade. So thanks, Lonnie, for always championing that and putting it on every year. Mahalo to you. All right. Well, we're grateful to have our next guest in here, Mr. Lynn Mariano. Mr. Mariano, when you're ready, you please unmute yourself, and then we'll let you have a 2-minute self-introduction. Please take it away.
Aloha, everyone. Particularly James, thanks for coordinating this, and it's great to be online. Just want to let you know that I'm currently at the Ala Moana Hotel. We're having our state Veterans of Foreign War convention, and I'm the commander of VFW Post 8616, and we're the host for this convention. So that's why I'm sorry I couldn't get on earlier, but thank you for this opportunity. I'm a retired military. I grew up in Hawaii, born and raised there in Kalihi, particularly in Honolulu. I went to Farrington High School, went to Chaminade UH, and then I was in the military, got my commission. My first assignment was in Germany, and make a long story short, I retired in 1995. I served as a personnel officer, and then later on got drafted to be pulled into the Special Operations Community, where I helped develop some programs. I commanded 2 companies and a battalion as an acting battalion commander during the Gulf War, the first Gulf War. And the other thing that I did was I went around the country after 9/11, designing and conducting counter-terrorist exercise and helped build national programs. And my last job was over at the Pentagon, where I helped do the upgrade of the physical security for the Pentagon to bring the physical security to the 21st century. We had no budget. I created a budget of $250 million. It was a 5-year program. With my team, led them, we were ahead of schedule, and we were under budget, unheard of in the Department of Defense. But again, I had a good team. So with that experience, I'm here to bring all that knowledge and experience, learning about people, culture, and economic system, and help change Hawaii, for a brighter future. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mariano. And I'm going to pass it over to our board member, Jeremy Madrid, to really ask you some questions for the next 16 minutes here. So Jeremy, please take it away.
Hey, Lynn, thank you so much for your service. It sounds like a tremendous amount you did for us. But commanding that many people, my first question goes about how you're going to get together your team. If elected governor, you're going to be tasked with appointing numerous department heads and deputies. How do you plan to make these selections? And what do you do when selecting key cabinet and staff members? How's that process go?
Yeah, aloha, Jeremy, and thanks. Great question. And that's one of the things that I have that experience with, particularly in the military. You just don't go in and clean house right away. There's some really great state individuals, that's the state personnel that's working right now. Within the first 100 days of my administration, I will do a calibration of where they stand as far as the budget. Are they supporting my plans and the programs, particularly for the state. Now, if I'm fortunate to win the primary election, and I hope I do, and then go into the general election, I will start to look at the cabinet that I will build so that I'll be ready on day one. I have a team of volunteers right now, and with individuals like you and James and Lonnie that's there, we can kind of build a team of teams so that we can solidify what is the right mix. And again, within the on day one, I should be ready to make the change and then move ahead. And then within the first 100 days, that will be a quick gauge to see, am I on track? And then I'm sure the people will be telling me that, and I'm able to change course. So I believe in working with a team of individuals, and my expertise has always been to find the right mix. And I've done that time and time and again. You're taking the unusual jobs that people don't want to get done. I'm given that task, and guess what? We were successful. We didn't have a program at the Pentagon. We made a program out of something, and we brought it from concept through design, through building to turnkey, where we turned it over, and it's being utilized today.
Yeah, excellent answer. So once you get put together your team, I think one of the things that's in everybody's forefront of their mind is how the economy is doing. And in light of the Hawaii's extreme reliance on tourism and the economic implosion that COVID-19 caused, how would you move Hawaii to a more diversified economy? Can you give me two specific examples that could help us kind of get this picture, your vision in mind for us?
Yeah, besides the Department of Defense and also tourism, which is our main staple for, we need to diversify in which we need to invest in our people, particularly the local businesses. And then also, kind of looking at food sustainability, and also being self-sustaining. So looking at partnering with the farming industry, fishing, and the agriculture, we'll be able to kind of grow this economy so that it's something where we can be self-sustaining. And so we need to invest in ourselves. The other thing I plan on doing is working to revise the tax law so that we can give tax credit, particularly for local investors. And then also outside investors, but then having our laws so that it's crafted and enforced so that it favors and tailors towards our locals. Because right now it's not fair and equitable. I don't have all the answers, but I plan on working with staff and also hearing everyone to try to make a change.
And touchstoning on investing in our people, early childhood education experiences have a direct impact on kindergarten readiness and future success in school. In recent data collection, it was revealed that only 24 to 34% of our Hawaiian Island public school third graders were reading at grade level. Success in reading at third grade is indicative of future success. As your role as governor, are you going to kind of deal with the Department of Education and work with those things? And that specifically talks about investing in our people.
Yeah, I believe in school choice, and one of the things that, I grew up in a public school system. And so again, I went all the way from elementary, intermediate, and high school. The only private school that I went to was Chaminade University, and then also Golden Gate, which is a private school. So I look at trying to invest in our teachers, getting the best teachers that's out there, looking at tapping into our kapunas, the retired teachers, and using them to extend part of that training. And then particularly for our keikis, we have young parents that's out there. And sometimes, you may have a mom or a dad that may have to stay home to take care of the kids. Well, during that early stages, I would like to invest in providing training for the parents to give them the necessary tools that they can also train their kids at home. and then investing in the quality care in the daycare centers and also in the kindergarten. That's kind of important to me. And one area that I've always seen in Hawaii that's been left out, and those are the individuals with disability. And so we need to invest in them. I talked to a Keiki group just recently, and that's one of the things that I brought out. You know, we need to also look at our students and our families that have people with disability. My wife is disabled. She's visually blind. So I'm very well versed with some of the needs that she would need. And so when we do any type of planning statewide, we need to ensure that we don't forget that community as well.
I appreciate that thoughtful answer. So that also kind of tapers into the cost of living, because education, you know, parents having to take care of kids. What strategies do you utilize to address the skyrocketing cost of living? It's really impacting the island. I know personally people moving away, friends of mine that have moved to the mainland. Can you be specific about what you could do about these kind of things?
Well, yes, and that's excellent, Jeremy, because, you know, my brother is retired military and he's retired federal service, and he has to leave the islands and he's moving to Las Vegas because it's cheaper there. So I've convinced him, I said, hey, bro, go ahead and rent, and then let's see what we can do to make a change to bring you back. So we need to look at revising the tax code. You know, our taxes is pretty high. And, our current legislature, they pride themselves, even like the city council, they pride themselves that, we got this tax surplus and everything's really great. You know, I'll give you an example. You know, gas prices are really high because of what's happening in the world, right? So as governor, if I have the authority and working with the legislature, you know, that $2 billion tax surplus that we have, I would put a freeze on the gas price, take that $2 billion or $1.5 billion and pay that towards that taxes to keep that gas price down until the present administration can fix the pipeline and whatever that we need to do, because Hawaii needs to be self-sufficient in that regard as well. And then also take the remaining funds and then pare down to eliminate or reduce the GE tax, across, particularly in food, because, one, we have to travel, we need to go to work. Two, we need to have food that we need to sustain ourselves. But most importantly, we need to invest in the way we need to grow the economy now and into the future. So there is a plan for that. It can't change overnight, but really looking at the tax plan, providing tax incentive for businesses, particularly local businesses, we should be able to kind of grow that economy that way. And as I mentioned, the Jones Act, if we can modify it to recognize Hawaii as the 50th state, we can bring in competition, we can grow the economy, and then bring the price down. Because right now, in the islands, you only have so many choices.
No, it's a big task. It's a very daunting task. How would lowering taxes affect affordable housing? Truly affordable housing was a serious issue before COVID-19, and now it's a lot worse. How would lowering taxes affect that? And are there other strategies you could present to help with affordable housing?
Yeah, that's a really great question. With the time remaining, I'd love to have a follow-up with you later on. But again, working with the right individuals, getting a team to really get down to the root cause of where we are. I don't have all the answers right now, but then I can tap into the necessary resources that's out there, working with smart individual economists and like that, and so that we can make sure that affordable housing is really what it is. Because right now, affordable housing is really, let's put it realistically, it's more of low-income housing. The middle class is forgotten. And so we need to address that. And so anyone making 100,000 or less, any type of incentives goes to them. But what about the rest? So that's the middle class that's been forgotten. So it's a really complex problem. I think I have a plan for that. And I'd like to follow what you and the Waimea Community Association sometime in the future. But in a short time frame, I don't have all the information that I have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very honest answer. I mean, some people might pretend that they have the answers to things, but and that's what we talked about at the beginning, putting together a team that works.
Yes.
How about agriculture? We need to improve on self-reliance here in Hawaii, and especially on the Big Island. We're a farming community. I live in a farming community, but the farmers are getting frustrated. And everybody talks about diversifying the agriculture, but there's not a lot of serious support for it. What, as governor, what would be your vision for agriculture?
Well, my vision is, again, working with farmers. I've talked to farmers. In fact, many years ago, I came to Parker Ranch as a delinquent. I learned how to cut grass there, and they kind of straight right. So, the farming and the agriculture, particularly on a Big Island, is very important. It doesn't make sense that we have to take the young cattle, put them on the airplane, send it to the mainland, to get it to grown, and then bring them back here to the islands, and then put it to slaughter, and then sell it. So why can't we do that here? So some of our environmental regulations needs to be lessened. It boggles my mind as I travel around the country, like Iowa, Idaho, and those places, farm feed, for the cattle is kind of important. It boggles my mind that we can't do that here because of the limitations. So again, need to go in, look at what doesn't make sense, cut that out, and make it more user friendly. So the farmers that I've talked to, we want to use some of the end products, to use for like building biofuel factories. So we can, have our own way of growing our own type of energy. That's part of it, self-sustaining. So investing in farmers, investing in the agriculture, and then also the fishing industry. Again, this is a great place on earth. I don't understand why, we haven't thought about this in the past. So by looking at that, I be happy to work closely with that. So again, where I'm at right now is in the hotel room, and we have the hospitality room right now, and so they just finished and they're coming in. So we're almost done. But I hope I answered your question. I definitely want to invest in that, because self-sustainability for Hawaii is very important, and it should have been done 4 decades ago, and I'm not sure why it wasn't. We've given lip service, and it's time to stop the lip service, and it's time to have serious action for now and into the future.
Thank you. A couple more questions. We only got a couple minutes left, but what's your take on the 30-meter telescope? It's a big, it's an item of contention here on the Big Island.
Yeah, what, I did study that a little. I don't have all the facts, but I do know that it is one of the things is, our ancestries. We kind of believe in the stars. I know that the 30-meter, they went ahead and worked with OHA, to try to get a means to help build that telescope and be good partners along the way. So I don't have all of the facts because I just have what's put in the paper. But I do plan in the next couple of weeks, getting with OHA and trying to find out what the root cause. I'm not sure if you know who Sam King is. Sam King is running for office, and he's running for OHA. And he's well versed in the 30-meter telescope. I know it's a big contention, particularly in Waimea, because you have 2 of it there. And so one of the things I would like to do is come out there, get more information so that I can make an informed decision. For me to tell you a yes or no, I'd be lying to you, and that's not what I'm about.
Yeah, appreciate your frankness. Last question, and it's pretty easy. You kind of touched upon this in your intro. Just one specific thing, one project that really kind of can pinpoint who you are as a person and demonstrate, it clarifies you being the governor.
Yes. So what's the question again?
One project you were involved with that kind of clarifies your qualities to be the governor.
Well, when I first started out right out of high school, I was on the first Kalihipalama neighborhood board with Mayor Fassi. And so I was the eyes and ears for that. And based on my leadership skills, I've taken tasks from high school, learn all around in the military and also with the federal service. And so I've taken projects, like I mentioned to you at the Pentagon. We had no program there. I was brought in to help build it and bring it to the 21st century. And so I was given the highest award by the Office of the Secretary of Defense, which is the Exceptional Civil Service Award. And because I was not only able to brought in the physical security infrastructure for 21st century, but also look at the transportation issues, also the sea burning, chemical, biological, regular, nuclear, and then tie all that in with emergency management, and then form a synergistic team to move things forward. And people did that because they trust me as their leader. And that's why I was able to lead it. And that's what makes me different.
Great, wonderful.
Thank you, Mr. Mariano. We'll give you one more minute to kind of wrap up and say any closing remarks you'd like to. Please go right ahead.
Well, again, I'll keep it really short. I thank you for the opportunity. I'm honored to be here and also to be fortunate to run for governor, because I do care about our state, and I care about the people, and I care about the future. And so the light at the end of the tunnel is not a freight train, but it's the light of hope. So one of the things I would like to do is take a look at my website at marianoforgovernor.org. It's Mariano4, F-O-R, governor.org. And please check out my website for all of my plans and where I stand. And if you like what you see, please join the team. If you think I need to change focus on certain things, then let me know. And I'm always open to learn. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mariano. Really appreciate you joining us this evening. I wish you all the best, and aloha to you.
Aloha too. Yeah, thanks. Good questions, Jeremy.
Thank you, sir. All right. Well, we're kind of at the end of the evening here. We appreciate everyone joining up and being a part of this call tonight. And we're going to start wrapping things up here. So thanks everyone for joining in and tuning in. It looks like we weren't able to get one of the candidates that we had promised to be on here, so we apologize about that. And really, before we close tonight, I just want to make a couple of last announcements here. First of all, mahalo nui to all of our candidates who participated in tonight's call. We wish you luck in your candidacy to represent the people of Hawaii. And of course, mahalo to all of the viewers who joined us on the live stream this evening. And we hope this event was informative and gave you a little taste and an opportunity to touch base with some of these candidates and learn about their skills and minds about what they can offer our people here. Next week, Thursday, as I mentioned, we'll be holding a similar forum for candidates seeking your support as Lieutenant Governor. And we hope you can join us again for that evening. And on behalf of the Waimea Community Association, I want to wish you good health, be well, aloha.